The community is watching how they're falsifying this case. How is this really working out for them? I mean, for 40 agents from the prosecution office to sit.
40 agents.
And then they look back, and I'm all the way in the back of the courtroom. I've got my own media outlet, and I built enough trust with this community where I'm providing this community the sealed material that the prosecution office is hiding from this community. I've got the body cams, I've got the documents, I've got the dash camera that they're sealing from this community, and we're all watching what they're doing in the Mustafa Al-Jazar. That's the problem that the prosecution office has. They're terrified. They're terrified from transparency. And you know, I'll tell you, this community at large at Prince William County should be terrified of what's coming out of this courtroom. Forget Mustafa. Forget what they're doing to Mustafa. I mean, if they can get away with doing this, if a fraction of what I'm talking about is true, you should be fucking terrified. If a fraction of what I'm talking about is true, you should be terrified. I mean, it's Saturday night, and you trust your police department and your prosecution in this so-called judicial system to work. But what we're finding out is that is Mustafa's vehicle crushed? Yeah, the police crushed Mustafa's vehicle.
The main piece of evidence.
The main piece of evidence. They want to tell you that Mustafa is a criminal, that Mustafa intentionally crashed his vehicle and killed his family. Then why the fuck did you crush the car? Why did you crush the car? I thought you want to prove your case, Prosecutor Sarah Sammy.
Yeah, what happened to preserving the evidence?
What happened to preserving the evidence? You crushed the car.
Chain of custody, okay, with the dash cam was violated.
Why did you break the chain of custody on the dash camera? Today you have a dash camera. We're all, by the way, everybody's asking the same question. Mm-hmm. Why is this dash camera cut? Where is the accident?
Where's the rest of it?
Where's the crash? Where's this audio? Wait a minute. You're telling me that there is audio? Then where's the audio? And then you find out the officer has 4 different stories to what happened to this dash camera. And today, the dash camera has no audio. It's cut before impact. I mean, you want to tell me you're not going to be terrified? I mean, this community has a business. And you have a business. You bought a house. You have a family. You entrust that nothing is going to happen. You're not going to have an officer that's going to falsify your case.
You entrust that when you put a camera in your car, it's going to record everything.
I remind you, if a fraction of what I'm talking about is true, you don't have a safe community.
Morning, Chief.
Morning. Just grabbing a little H2O before the next briefing. You know, a lot of good conversations start right here at this cooler. Keeps the department running and hydrated. Now,
Chief, we have a problem.
what's going on?
The Mustafa brothers. One of them got into evidence storage, took the Redfield file.
You're sure?
Caught him on the cameras 10 minutes ago.
Damn it.
Detective Forrester's been trying to track him since.
He knew exactly what he wanted. Folder was gone when I came back from the
All
lab.
right, lock down the exits.
We've lost another body cam node. Pull up the feed.
Found him. It's Mustafa, brother. He has the cams.
Lock down the servers. Now!
He's already inside.
Turn. This is for you, Agent Doyle. Full clip. Don't let them bury it.
Garcia, it's Reed. I need a location on Mustafa, brother, now.
The brought him on a ride-share trace, heading south on East Street, plate ending 068.
Sending coordinates now.
Copy that. Keep the feet up.
I'm moving. Garcia, it's Reed. I need a location on Mustafa, brother, now.
The broadcast talk to me.
Rideshare just dropped him downtown. He's heading for a studio called FM Wave.
Copy that. Put eyes on the block and lock it down. Whatever you do, don't let him air that file on his podcast. Units are en route.
Yeah, it's
You can't do it. That's what I'm telling you. You cannot do it. I will have to move to withdraw from the case.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right.
So make sure everybody's aware
Definitely
of that.
a cold night.
It's definitely cold. The weather is definitely disrespectful.
Anywhere on the internet.
This is not another boring podcast. Mustafa through the police body cam. Judge Carol Weimer, you are under the microscope.
Turn the laptop.
You want to
this
turn
way?
it?
Yeah.
Like this?
More. Right there.
Good. All right. We're here at our county jail, Prince William County Adult Detention Center. Right here behind me is the county jail. Right next to it is the sheriff's office. We just got done visiting Mustafa. Mustafa is hanging in there. He's in strong spirit, and we're telling him to hang in there. Now, yesterday we had court for Mustafa. Mustafa had filed a motion to compel. Mustafa is asking his lawyer, the judge, Judge Carol Weimer, is asking Judge Carol Weimer to compel his lawyer, Gene Brown, with Morrison & Morrison, to go over discovery with him. Mustafa is entitled to go over discovery. That's his constitutional rights. We can all agree that Mustafa has a right to go over the material that's in his case. He's the defendant in this case. He can go over his body cams. He can go over the document. He can go every piece of evidence that's in his case. That's his constitutional right. Now, what happened yesterday, and instead of holding a hearing over the motion to compel his lawyer to go over discovery, instead, what his lawyer has done, Gene Brown, is she filed a motion to withdraw. Now, the question is, and we're going to get into detail what's going on in court and what's going on with Mustafa's lawyer and what's going on with this judge, Judge Carol Weimer, that he's not compelling Mustafa's lawyer to go over discovery. I want to thank Mohammed for being here. Mohammed, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now, a little introduction about Gene Brown with Morrison & Morrison. Gene Brown is a public defender. She was assigned to Mustafa by Judge Carol Weimer in late December of last year. So she's been on Mustafa's case for just about a little bit over 5 months. And what we're gonna go over is what was said in December, what she said in court versus what she said yesterday. And we want to understand what's going on with this lawyer.
You're talking about what she said on February 27th during the bond hearing.
February 27th, exactly.
This is after their lip reader was kicked out. Mustafa's new lawyer filed for a bond motion. But yeah, keep going.
Now, one thing I want to make clear for everybody that's tuning in, this is not to attack Mustafa's lawyer. I have a good relationship with Mustafa's lawyer, and what we're attempting to do is to empower Mustafa's defense attorney to go up against the county and ask for the missing pieces of evidence. There are missing body cams. The county is refusing to have Mustafa's vehicle get inspected by an independent expert, even though there is a judge order to do so. The county is refusing to have an independent expert extract the dash camera off of the SD card, off the SD card that the county is in possession of, because evidence showed that the police cut and muted Mustafa's dash camera. And we're attempting to empower Mustafa's lawyer to get the missing body cams and have the independent expert go in and do their job. Now, what we're finding out is that this defense attorney is terrified. She's terrified to go up to this county and demand that they give her the exculpatory pieces of evidence that are missing in Mustafa's file. And hopefully, through what we do on this platform, we can empower this lawyer. Because what I saw yesterday is terrifying. In court, you have one defense attorney, and there are just about 45 agents from the county up against one defense attorney. I mean, if you take a hard look at what's going on in court, it sure looks like it's a show of force. And you expect that one lawyer to go up against a county that already we have evidence that they crushed and staged Mustafa's vehicle. They're blocking the independent expert from inspecting this vehicle, even though there's a judge order. They cut and muted Mustafa's dash camera. They falsified Mustafa's statements. They weaponized the children that Mustafa is a father figure in their life. A 9, a 10, a 14. We have the forensic interviews. And we're expecting Gene Brown to go up against a whole entire county when the media is not letting the community know what is going on in Mustafa's case. We believe that Mustafa's lawyer is intimidated. And hopefully, through what we do, we empower Gene Brown to be able to go up against the county. And instead of filing a motion to withdraw and running away, we hope that we can empower her to go up to the county and ask for the missing pieces of exculpatory evidence that show what happened in this case. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to go through the transcript from the bond motion in February 27, and we're going to go over the transcript from yesterday. We're going to tell you what Mustafa said versus what Gene Brown, the defense attorney, said versus what the judge is saying. And yesterday, Judge Carol Brown, and instead of compelling... Carol Brown.
It might as well be Carol Brown.
Might as well. Judge Carol Weimer. Might as well.
I mean, she said it multiple times that she has a great relationship.
Look, what we're gonna do, with
this judge, and from what we know from transcripts with Mustafa's prior counsel, the judge specifically stated on the record that he called these lawyers prior to them being assigned Mustafa's attorneys. He called them personally and had a private conversation with them before they were assigned to Mustafa. I mean, you don't see anything wrong with that picture. A judge calling an attorney privately, not part of the legal system, just on his own. He says, this is a good friend of mine. Okay, this lawyer is a great friend of his. He called him to take on Mustafa's case, and he obviously discussed other things with regards to this case. But today, all of a sudden, in 2026, the judge, Carol Weimer's secretary, sends Mustafa a letter saying that the judge will not take any of your letters. The court will not accept any of your letters to the courts because they're considered ex parte. But what do you call it when the judge himself that's on this case, that refuses to recuse himself, that refuses to follow the canon judicial rules of conduct, okay, and a judge that practices law from the bench? He's essentially a prosecutor sitting behind a bench.
Well, I'll tell you how he's prosecuting the case. Yesterday,
Judge Weimer is prosecuting this case.
I'll tell you something that's
really
interesting.
let that be known and very clear. He's prosecuting this case from behind the bench.
Well, what I found interesting yesterday is Judge Weimer denied the motion to withdraw because Mustafa's lawyer filed a motion to withdraw, and the judge denied it. And then the prosecutor says, and then he asked the prosecutor, would you like to hold a motion to hear the motion to withdraw? She tells Judge Weimer, no, Your Honor, since you denied it, I'm going to
withdraw my motion.
Withdraw my motion.
The prosecutor withdrew her motion, and the judge decided on his own that there's going to be a further hearing for the prosecutor, though
he's prosecuting the case. He's another prosecutor.
He's another prosecutor.
The prosecutor is telling him, I want to withdraw the motion. He's like, no, we're going to keep it on the docket, and we're going to hear it in, I think he decided on May 15.
May 15, he wants to hold another hearing.
Is he instigating?
But what is the purpose of the next hearing going forward? He's basically doing the same exact thing he did with Brad Haywood. Brad Haywood submitted a motion to withdraw. Judge Weimer denied it. Okay, and then we look at the record, we see that the judge had an ex parte meeting with Mustafa's attorney. Ex parte, remember, the judge claims today that his secretary claims today that she does not accept any ex parte communication. Okay, they're not taking Mustafa's letters from jail about his lawyer not meeting with him, showing him discovery and all that. But the same thing Judge Weimer did with Brad Haywood when he denied him the first motion to withdraw. There was specifically an ex parte meeting, okay, with this judge. And then during the second motion to withdraw for Brad Haywood, the judge himself gave him advice on how to withdraw from the case. If you read the transcript, Judge Weimer specifically asked Brad Haywood, why are you withdrawing? Okay, and then Brad Haywood's response was not good enough, so the judge told him, unless you have a breakdown in communication, and that's the key That's the key statement that they like to put out for every lawyer going forward. That's what they're putting for Gene Brown. But the Judge Weimer, specifically told Brad Haywood, you have a breakdown in communication. Is that right? And Brad Haywood says no. The judge asked him again, you have a breakdown in communication, right? And then when Brad Haywood said yes, the judge says, okay, I'm approving your motion because apparently a breakdown in communication with the client, with the defendant, now gives you grounds to withdraw. But that's not what Brad Haywood put in his motion. That's not what Brad Haywood was saying in his motion that day. But Judge Carol Weimer gave him that answer. Okay, he gave him that answer on the record. That means the judge is no longer a judge. He's a prosecutor. And he's been practicing law from behind the bench ever since the inception of this case, when it went to the circuit court. This judge specifically gets phone calls while he's at a doctor's office. And he said it himself. I mean, we wouldn't have this information unless the judge told us himself on the record. He said, I'm at the doctor's office and I get a phone call about a letter that came in from Mustafa. I mean, Mustafa was writing a letter to the courts, to the, what's her name? Jacqueline Smith, the clerk of the court. Okay, Mustafa writes a letter to the court. He's not writing to Judge Weimer himself specifically. He wrote it to the court to go on the record. Why is Judge Weimer getting a phone call at his doctor's visit? While he's at the doctor's, he's getting a phone call. Do judges in Prince William County get personalized phone calls about inmates? I mean, you got like, what, 2,500 inmates. I don't know how many criminal cases you got here, but I'm pretty sure there's like 6 judges total. I'm sure they're not all getting calls and text messages while they're at home, while they're on vacation, while they're at the doctor's office. But we know that Judge Carol Weimer for sure is getting private phone calls about specific inmates. In this case, it's Mustafa Al-Jazari. He's getting updated with personal communication about letters from Mustafa.
Let me ask you a question.
And then he played this whole thing about not having, he held the letter up in court saying that this is still sealed. We haven't opened it. Come on, like
Judge Carol Weimer
don't bullshit us.
Judge Carol Weimer says he doesn't accept ex parte communications, correct? That's what he's saying now.
That's what he says. That's what they want to say in 2026. This case has been going on for 3 years.
But in the past, he's accepted ex parte communication from Mustafa.
They're on the record. Every letter Mustafa has sent has been scanned into the record and has been read by the court. But today, the judge wants to act like, no more letters from Mustafa. All of a sudden, they decide now they want to follow the rules.
This is a document that's pulled up on the screen. If you can do me a favor, Mohammed, read that document. October 22nd, 2025. Ex parte.
This is 2 days prior to Brad Haywood filing his second motion to withdraw. The first one was denied. And then there was this ex parte, clearly communication with the judge.
But Judge Weimer wants to play this game that he no longer accept ex parte communication from Mustafa.
With accordance to the so-called rules.
So Mustafa filed a motion to compel his lawyer after just about 5 months patiently waiting for his lawyer, defense attorney Gene Brown with Morrison & Morrison. Gene Brown promised Mustafa that she's going to go up to the county and demand the missing body cams. And she's going to get an independent expert to inspect Mustafa's vehicle. That's 2. 3, she's going to get an independent expert to inspect and extract Mustafa's dash camera. And she's going to sit down and review. And also for the hard drive, the cell phone dump. Mustafa's cell phone, Dorothy's 3 cell phones. There's a cell phone dump, 1 terabyte.
1 terabyte.
That she's going to go over Mustafa. 5 months. And Mustafa is patiently waiting for his lawyer. His lawyer promised him that she's going to go and get the material and sit down with Mustafa and go over this material.
She promised him that she was going to file bond for him.
Exactly.
She promised him. She said, I promise. I mean, not only to Mustafa, we had a 4-hour conversation with her after that bond hearing on February 27th. We had a 4-hour conversation with her, and she said, this was a Friday, she said, I'm going to make sure I file his bond motion for bond reconsideration or appeal it to the Court of Appeals, because according to her, by the way, according to the conversation we had with her, she said what the judge is doing is not fair because there is certainly a change in circumstance. The main piece of evidence that the prosecutor was relying on was the lip reader. And that lip reader was kicked out of the case because according to the law, lip readers are not reliable sources of information for trial. So the judge kicked off the lip reader. And then we have this bond hearing a few weeks later, which is a major change in circumstance because Mustafa was denied bond initially because the prosecutor said, Your Honor, I have a lip reader that's going to say that Dorothy said no Empress is in the car. That statement, that's what they aired out on the news. That's what the judge made his decision on. Today, the lip reader is kicked off the case, and the judge did not even listen. He did not even listen to what Jean Brown had to say on February 27th. So Jean Brown was very upset, and she said, what the judge did today is just not fair. He did not listen to the information I just said. I just gave all that information, and the judge simply just ignored it, and he denied my motion. So what am I going to do? My options as a defense attorney is to go above Judge Weimer with the information that I have, that the county is relying on falsified material. I'm going to take this case to the Court of Appeals. And she said on February 27th, she said, I'm going to file it tonight. If I don't file it tonight, I'm going to definitely file it over the weekend. A week go by, we don't hear from Jean Brown. 2 weeks go by, we don't hear from Jean Brown. 3 weeks go by, we don't hear from her. Mustafa hasn't heard from her. So an entire month goes by, and we're checking the Court of Appeals online. We don't see a case from Mustafa. And she finally suddenly shows up at the jail, okay, because apparently she had another client to meet, and she decided to meet with Mustafa that day as well. And she told him that the reason she has not filed the appeal bond is because she was waiting on the transcript from February 27th. She can't file the appeal because she's waiting on the transcript, and she promised him that day, it's in the notes, she said, I'm going to file your bond tomorrow because tomorrow I'm getting the transcript and I'm filing your appeal for bond. Well, here we are 2 months later.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Until this day, she has not filed for bond.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't you have, as a defense attorney, 30 days from the time to appeal a bond?
You have 30 days to file. You have 30 days to file an appeal on that decision from February 27th. By the way,
so my question is: is Mustafa lawyer lying to Mustafa when she
100%
after 2 months she's still telling him, Mustafa,
I'm going to file your bond appeal. And then yesterday,
is that not lying and deceiving your client?
Yesterday, when he asked her, hey, you're trying to withdraw today, but what happened with my appeal? She said, I'm not talking to you about that today. I'm not talking to you about that today. Did you file the appeal that you promised you were going to file? By the way, when she decided by herself, all on her own, without consultation with Mustafa, to extend his case for a whole year to the end of December, she did not consult with Mustafa. She did not look over, which he was sitting right next to her. She could have said, are you okay with your case being heard in December, which puts you beyond the speedy trial rule? I mean, I've sat in court and I've heard other judges every single time, including Judge Weimer, they ask the defendant when they extend their case, do you understand that you're waiving your right to a speedy trial when you agree to this extension? That's a major question that every judge asks the defendant when their case is getting extended again, because that puts them past the 6 months speedy trial rule. Okay, you're supposed to have in Virginia by law trial within 6 months.
I remember Mustafa was very adamant about going to trial in December, and
of course,
his lawyer did not consult with Mustafa.
Well, here's the catch. When she spoke to Mustafa prior to this hearing, before extending the trial date, she told him that she was going to try her best to do it in June. Okay, in June. Okay, because she was free in June. But she said, I don't know if the prosecutor is free in June. So we'll have to see. Okay, but she told him she was not going to push it more than 3 to 4 months. Okay, they go into court. And all of a sudden, she's saying she's not available in June. She's telling the judge, I'm not available in June.
Without consulting with Mustafa.
When you just told him you're available in June, you just told Mustafa that you can do his trial in June. All of a sudden, in court, you push it to December without consulting with Mustafa. But she's telling Mustafa, I'm going to file your bond appeal. Don't worry about the December date. Don't worry about it. I'm going to get you out before then. I've looked at your case. I've looked at the facts of this case. I'm going to get you a bond. Okay? You're sitting here based on falsified information. I have all the relevant information to get you out on bond. You have no criminal record. Okay? And this was a car accident, and you're sitting in jail because Robert Drum falsified your statements.
I mean, she said
they falsified the warrant.
She said that in court.
She said
we
that
have
in court.
the transcript. She said that Mustafa, the investigator, falsified his statements, and then she went on into the detail of how this county falsified this whole entire case on the record. And you have the transcript.
We're going to go into what she said in court.
We're going to go over it. Okay, but let's just take a pedal back a little bit. Okay, so she made Mustafa a bunch of promises that she's going to file a bond, that she's going to get his vehicle reconstructed. There's a judge order, and the county is paying for an independent expert.
They've already agreed to pay, by the way, back in, November of 2024. The judge granted money for Mustafa's defense to inspect the car and get an expert to examine the dash camera, the SD card. The government gave funds for a private investigator to go through Mustafa's case.
She told Mustafa that she's going to go over the hard drive with him. She's going to go up against the county and get the missing body cam. So there is a number of items that she promised Mustafa. This is back in December when she got assigned to the case. Now, you have the transcript. We're going to go over what this lawyer said on the record to Judge Weimer in February. And we're going to
dissect what she says.
And then we're going to go to what happened yesterday. And how is it that this lawyer is talking about a breakdown in communication? The question here is she withdrawing because of breakdown in communication, or is she removing herself from the case because she's not willing to go up to the county and ask for the missing body cam and missing evidence in this case that's going to show how the county falsified this case? Is she not willing to sit down with her client, Mustafa, and go over the discovery? That's Mustafa's constitutional right to be able to go over his discovery.
I mean, as far as we know, that's the law. If you are accused in America of a crime, you are entitled to know, number one, what you're being accused of, and number two, who is accusing you of what? Okay, number three, you have the right to a speedy trial within 6 months.
To be clear,
that's the law.
To be clear, what Mustafa said yesterday is that he does not have a problem with Jean Brown. As a matter of fact, he wants her to stay on his case. All he's asking is for her to go over discovery with him. He's asking for his missing body cams. He's asking for the independent expert to do their job.
He's asking the lawyer to do
the
most basic things a lawyer should do. Okay, if a lawyer promises you they're going to put a filing on the record, you're sitting in jail. I mean, that's who's advocating for you. That's who's ensuring that your rights are not just trampled upon. That's your lawyer. And when your lawyer tells you, Mustafa, I'm going to see you tonight, she doesn't show up. Mustafa, I'm going to see you Monday. She doesn't show up. Mustafa, on Monday, I'm going to see you on Wednesday. Wednesday come around, she doesn't show up. And then she doesn't pick up her phone for 2 weeks. Then she answers and says, I'm going to see you this weekend. And then this weekend comes around, she doesn't show up. This happened for 2 months, and 60 days.
60 days. And then when she does show up, she says, my computer, I don't have the file.
I don't have the right file.
I don't have the right file. I mean, then what are you sitting down with Mustafa?
Let that sink in. 60 days of not responding to your client. 60 days of your client waiting on you to file his motion for appeal for bond. 60 days where you've just ignored your client completely, and he calls you every single day, at minimum 3 times a day. He calls you every day. And when you tell him you're going to show up, you don't show up. 60 days. And then when you do show up after 60 days, you tell him, oops, I forgot to bring your file with me.
It sounds like she's gaslighting Mustafa.
And then you disappear for another.
She doesn't actually have the file. It sounds like the county is not giving her the missing body cams. I mean, we know on the record that Prosecutor Sarah Sammy and investigator Robert Drum on a police body cam that now has been leaked, that we can all see they blocked the independent expert from inspecting Mustafa's vehicle 2.5 years ago. But this is what they're doing. In court, Prosecutor Sarah Sammy tells Judge Weimer, Your Honor, I allowed the independent expert to inspect the vehicle.
That was a lie.
That's a lie. That's why Brad Haywood, Mustafa's previous defense attorney, wrote a Brady motion. And in that Brady motion, we have the transcript where he told Judge Weimer, Your Honor, this is the body cam. This prosecutor blocked the independent expert. And because of it, Judge Carol Weimer ordered another judge order to allow another independent expert in the county paid money to go out and inspect the vehicle. And let that sink in. Until this day, that vehicle has not been inspected. And when Mustafa asked his lawyer, his current lawyer, where's my vehicle inspection? His lawyer files a motion to withdraw. Now, is it fair to say that this lawyer is terrified to go up against a county that falsified this case? I think it's fair.
That's what it looks like.
Is there a breakdown in communication, or are you terrified to go up to the county and ask for the missing file? So, what we're going to do, we're going to read the transcript from February, and we're going to see what Gene Brown said about Mustafa, said about his case. And we're going to go all the way to what happened yesterday, and we're going to compare it. We're going to go over the transcript. We're going to read what happened and what defense attorney Gene Brown said in February, what she said about Mustafa, what she said the county has done in Mustafa's case. And we're going to compare what is going on and what she said yesterday. We're going to go over what Mustafa's saying in court. We're going to see what the judge is saying in this case, because Mustafa, yesterday, he was supposed to have a motion. There's a motion that's supposed to be heard, and it's on the record. Judge Carol Weimer said that yesterday, that he received the motion to compel. He read the motion to compel, but the problem that we have, and that Mustafa has, is there was no motion heard to compel his lawyer to go over discovery. Instead, the only motion that the judge went over yesterday is a motion to withdraw. And how is that fair for Mustafa? How are you addressing the situation when you're ignoring the motion to compel? And Mustafa stood in court yesterday and told Judge Weimer specifically, Your Honor, my vehicle has not been inspected by an independent expert. I've been in solitary confinement for over 3 years. The dash camera has not been inspected by an independent expert. There are missing body cams from my file. There are a terabyte, a cell phone dump, that my lawyer is not allowing me to go over. How is it fair for Mustafa that the judge is not compelling his lawyer to go over the material? And the question is does this lawyer have the file? Because based on what we're finding is the county is not releasing this material. And we're finding out that this lawyer is terrified to go up against the county. So what does she do instead? Instead of being able to answer Mustafa, instead of being able to go over this file, I mean, how hard is it to go over the body cams in Mustafa's file? That's Mustafa's constitutional right. Mustafa should be able to go over. He's the defendant in this case. He should be able to go over the body cams. He should be able to go over the cell phone dump. He should be able to have those independent experts go in and extract the dash camera and reconstruct the vehicle. I remember in a Brady motion back in, I believe it was October of last year. Is it October? I have to check the transcript. But it was a Brady motion where Brad Haywood, where Judge Weimer, when he said, I'm going to allow an independent expert, he put out a judge order to inspect the dash camera. He specifically ordered that the dash camera finding, when an independent expert go in and extract the audio off the dash camera, is there's a judge order specifically against the family, against Mustafa. Let that sink in. Against Mustafa's family. He wants to put a protective order from releasing that information to the family. All right, so let me just really understand what is happening here. Are they terrified that when an independent expert go in and finally inspect this dash camera that they've been telling this community has no audio, the lawyer is going to go in and tell Mustafa, we got the audio. They've been lying about this case for 3 years. The next time we call Mustafa, because we talk to Mustafa every day, Mustafa is going to tell us, they have my audio. They've been lying about this case. They have the audio. Remember, there's no protective order against Mustafa. You can't prevent Mustafa from knowing anything about his case. So Mustafa has to know what is going on. So if they find the audio, they have to tell Mustafa. And they're scared that Mustafa is going to tell us and we're going to tell this community. So, are they hiding exculpatory evidence in this case? Absolutely. And in the process, they're violating Mustafa's constitutional right. So, we're going to have Muhammad go over the transcript from what happened in February and what we're going to do.
I want to be clear. I don't have the transcript. I have my notes.
Okay.
In combination with your notes and other people that took notes in court.
It'll give us a glimpse of what Gene Brown.
I have pretty much what.
It'll give us a glimpse into what Mustafa's lawyer said on February versus what happened yesterday, and why is she asking to withdraw all of a sudden? If you believe in Mustafa's innocence so much, if you believe that this county falsified this case, and you're willing to put it on the record back in February, what happened yesterday?
What happened from the last time you stood in court? What happened from February 27th until today? What is it, like 2 months? What happened in the 2 months that just passed that all of a sudden now you're saying you want to withdraw from the case? What happened in those 2 months? Did you get threats? I mean, we know other attorneys prior to Gene Brown, they received threats. Brad Haywood specifically said he was threatened. Blake Weiner said he was threatened. And who else was threatened on
Elaine
Jarvis.
Elaine Jarvis.
By the way, not only was Elaine Jarvis threatened, she was prosecuted by Judge Carol Weimer.
I love how yesterday...
And in his own words, I'm going to make an example out of you. That's what he told Mustafa's defense lawyer.
Judge Carol Weimer tells Mustafa's defense attorney...
I mean, yesterday he's reading off, he's like, this is your 12th lawyer. 12th lawyer. And then he went through the names, okay? By the way, most of them were withdrawn not by decision of Mustafa. Some of them didn't even see Mustafa, like Aaron Ford and a couple of other ones that were assigned. Morrison, that withdrew because they came on the record after being assigned and they said, we have a conflict of interest. I can't defend him. And they were taken off the case. But specifically to Elaine Jarvis, for him to even read Elaine Jarvis's name, when he sat there and prosecuted this lawyer from behind the bench, once again, he was, in his own words, making an example out of Mustafa's lawyer. And if you look at what Elaine Jarvis did, in totality, you look at what she did, she released Mustafa's jail video that shows him getting dragged unconscious after getting beaten up.
Not only that, she did a podcast about Mustafa.
She did a podcast about
and what
him.
they're doing to Mustafa. What this county at large, the police department, and this prosecution.
She spoke out.
She spoke out against how they're falsifying Mustafa's case. And in the transcript, Judge Weimer says, I'm going to make an example out of you. Let that really sink in. The judge that's presiding
supposed to be
over,
impartial.
Supposed to be impartial. The presiding over Mustafa's case
prosecuted
is telling his lawyer, Elaine Jarvis, I'm going to make an example out of you. Elaine Jarvis came out and she recorded this video. We have a video where Elaine Jarvis is telling you that she's been threatened by the police. That's Mustafa's previous assistant.
You have the video. You have the one prior to that, the podcast one that she did.
Well, let's watch this one.
Okay, let's go through this one.
Which one are you talking about?
The one in her office where she said,
I believe I do.
We are Americans. We're not scared of the light of day or something like that.
I believe I do. We're going to watch Elaine.
I mean, apparently the light of day scared her, so.
I believe I do. I should. Nope, there we go. I think that's it. That's not it, right?
No, that's not it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Let's just go through that one. The one you just...
Off one. I think I do. So this is Elaine on her podcast exposing what the county is doing to Mustafa.
Which is him being carried semi-conscious out of his jail cell by 6 guards.
It needs to be stopped.
This is on her channel.
That's on her channel.
Yeah. One of the days we're going to
happen in jail, which is him being carried semi-conscious out of his jail cell
So-
by 6 guards.
So on her platform, she's exposing what the county has done to Mustafa. And then Judge Weimer takes her to court. And on a transcript,
He prosecuted Mustafa's defense attorney. The same judge. I mean, we know Prince William County didn't run out of judges, but they specifically let that judge prosecute Mustafa's defense attorney, prior defense attorney, because she spoke out about the falsified report, how he's being abused in jail, how he's been mishandled, how his evidence has been destroyed and crushed, and all that, and the judge went after her.
this is what Mustafa's defense attorney...
And she's no longer allowed to practice law, by the way,
This is
in Prince William County.
This is what Mustafa's defense attorney says after Judge Weimer went after her and prosecuted her for exposing what they're doing to Mustafa's case.
The reason, and I've told the Virginia State Police that I'm afraid they're going to kill me because I've spoken out about it. And I'm still afraid they're going to kill me. Now I'm afraid they're going to railroad me and set me up for something that I have not done.
You're afraid of who?
The Virginia State Police. Okay. I'm afraid of the police.
Gotcha.
I'm afraid of the police. I am 53 years old. I have never been in trouble. I have, you can look up my record.
And I don't trust the police either. 100%.
I don't.
So, is it fair to say what Gene Brown with Morrison and Morrison is going through? The same thing that Elaine Jarvis went through, the same thing that Blake Weiner, the other defense attorney that said he's been threatened off this case. Is it fair to say the same thing that Brad Haywood is going through? He said he's been threatened off the case. Is it fair that Gene Brown, and instead of sitting down with her client and going over the discovery, going up against the county, going up to the county and ask for the missing body cams, the missing pieces of evidence, exculpatory evidence, is it fair that she says, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to get myself the fuck out of this case because I am not willing to go up against a whole entire county that falsified the hell out of this case. Is it fair to say that? Well, let's read what she said on February and compare to what happened yesterday in court.
Okay, let me just go through these notes real quick. Let's see. I'm just going to summarize a little bit before I get to what Ms. Brown said on the record. So this was February 27th, 2026. So the judge asked, the first thing the judge asked was, he said, if I were to grant a continuous, what is the earliest that you can try this case? Okay, Gene Brown, Mustafa's court-appointed lawyer, said, I would say 3 to 4 months. That's what I would ask for. Okay, and the reason for the 3 to 4 months, she says, is because there are some experts that I still need to consult with. I have some experts that I have in mind that I need to acquire. Okay. And then the judge asked a somewhat of an odd question. He said, "Is your motion for continued? Is your motion for continuing for a continuous? Is that contingent upon my ruling in your other motion?" So he's asking her, "Is your continuance contingent upon me granting or not granting bond?"
Well,
because she was asking for bond, and the judge wanted to clear that out of the way before they get started on anything. He wants to know that if her bond for Mustafa is denied, are you still going to ask for a continuance?
So let me ask you this. Why would he ask her that specific question? Because that's a very specific question to ask.
It's a very specific question, and I think she should have answered, yes, it is contingent, because if my client is not going to get bond, I'm not going to extend his case any further than it needs to be. But she said no, which was a little bit shocking, that she said that the bond hearing is not contingent upon the continuing his trial to a further date. She should have said, yes, it is. Because if you're not going to grant my client bond, then clearly, based on what Mustafa has said on the record, he wants to go to trial the fastest way possible, the quickest day possible. He does not want a continuance. He's been sitting in jail for a long time. And she said, no, it's not contingent upon that.
So what would have happened if she had said, yes, it is contingent on my client getting bond?
Then I think the judge would have heard her bond hearing a little more seriously. Because if you listen to what the judge said, what the defense attorney said, and the prosecutor, all three of those entities, what they said during the bond hearing, number one, the prosecutor did not even respond to anything that Gene Brown said about falsified reports, beating in jail, about extended incarceration without trial, about falsified affidavits, all that stuff. The prosecutor never responded to it. And Gene Brown told the judge in court that day that Mustafa sits in jail today because the police falsified his statements on the record. They falsified his statements. Okay. And they falsified evidence into this case. And their entire case is built on a theory of the narrative that they put out. It's a theory that's not supported by the way, that's her words, not supported by any piece of evidence. That he's sitting in jail today based on a theory, a hunch by the prosecution and falsified information by the police.
Now, I remember another thing. There's a case law out of the Supreme Court where if the defendant is sitting in jail before having trial for an extended amount of time, in Mustafa's case, it's 3 years. There's a case law of the Supreme Court where if it's Mustafa's fault, if it's the prosecution's fault, then that defendant is entitled to a bond until his trial is heard.
Daniels, I think, or what was, I forgot the case law for it.
I have to look up the note, but it's a case law of the Supreme Court. And Mustafa has a very strong case because on body cam that's now been leaked shows the prosecution in cahoots with the officer that falsified Mustafa's case, blocked and broke a judge order to get Mustafa vehicle inspected by an independent expert 2.5 years ago, and they've lied about it in court where they're the reason that Mustafa's case is not moving to trial. Now, why did Mustafa's lawyer not argue that motion?
Good question.
I mean, instead, she told Mustafa, I'm going to appeal the judge's decision, and gaslight him and frankly lied to Mustafa about filing an appeal for bond.
She lied to him. Flat out lied to him. It's just sad. Okay, let me continue where I left off. So she tells the judge it's not contingent on that ruling. Okay. And then she says to the judge, she says, Mr. Al-Jazari and I agreed that we need to ask for continuance, and that is separate from my request for bond. I
remember she said Mustafa is adamant about going to trial in December. But I'm telling him I need to get the vehicle inspected. I need the independent expert to extract the dash camera. Okay, but Mustafa is adamant about going to trial. And it's her recommendation, by the way, without consulting with Mustafa, that she pushed his trial. And here we are, 5 months later, nothing has been done in Mustafa's case.
This is what she says. She said, I think the motion is comprehensive of the reasons that I'm asking for continuance primarily. This is a very serious charge with a lot of evidence, and I was just appointed a couple of months ago. Of course, we had the holidays, an ice storm. I just had a week-long jury trial. I think it's impossible for me to acquire all of the information in such a short time in a way that does justice for Mustafa. Okay? Prosecutor says, Your Honor, the Commonwealth does appreciate Ms. Brown's stance and position. However, the Commonwealth have to object to this continuance. This case has been previously set for jury trial 3 separate times. We have 40 to 50 witnesses, a lot of civilians. The Commonwealth is concerned that we're going to lose or start losing civilian witnesses. We've already, let me see, what did they say?
I find it really funny that the prosecutor says that when on a leaked body cam, they're blocking the independent expert and breaking the judge order to inspect Mustafa's
So
vehicle.
the judge says, if I continue this case, when is the earliest you're going to trial? The prosecutor says she doesn't know. She doesn't have a date in mind. Okay. Okay, this is what I find a bit interesting. This is what the judge says. He says, Ms. Brown, let me just tell you my concern. Continuance is, of course, every time a case is continued, there's a problem on both sides, and it's not just this one. And the continuance is blah, 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 for reasons that... Okay, it's relatively short before the trial date, and of course, there is a ton of evidence in this case. He says, my thoughts on it are that every time it's continued, there are more documents to review. I mean, this is what Judge Weimer is saying. Every time this case has been continued, all of a sudden, the new appointed counsel gets more documents than the previous lawyer.
Well, yeah, because the prosecution is withholding exculpatory evidence.
I mean, that's a problem. The judge is even admitting that every time he continues this case, more information is brought out from the Commonwealth side, from the prosecutors. They basically release more information from the case, exculpatory information that was not previously released.
By the way, that's illegal.
That's illegal. You're withholding Brady material.
Brady versus Maryland entails the prosecution to release all exculpatory evidence. In this case, they're withholding those body cams. They're withholding the exculpatory evidence. And that's illegal. And the judge is admitting to it.
I mean, he's saying here that because I suspect that what happens is the Commonwealth provides you with all of the things that they have provided to previous counsel, and then previous counsel provides that to Gene Brown, okay? And then you have to, and then he says the next counsel has to figure out what's a duplicate and what's not. Why would there be something that's not a duplicate?
Look, the bottom line
unless you're withholding information, you basically withheld information from Brad that's coming out now to Gene Brown. Okay, you've withheld. We know for a fact a ton of information that was withheld from Blake Weiner that Brad Haywood received. Okay, a bunch of material. Okay, but the issue that we're having today is, till this day, 12 lawyers in, and the hard drive with 1 terabyte has not yet been released to any of the lawyers.
Let me just put it like this. How hard is it for Mustafa's lawyer to sit down with her defendant and go over the body cams and the cell phone dump, the 1 terabyte hard drive, and the material that's in his case? The only reason this lawyer is not sitting down with Mustafa is because she doesn't have it. The county is not releasing this material to the lawyer, and the lawyer is terrified not to push back. So instead, she filed a motion to withdraw.
This is what she says.
But because we're putting it on the record, Mustafa is putting it on the record, he had not gone through his discovery.
This is what Jean Brown said during that bond hearing. She said, I would agree thus far. We have, her and Mustafa, we have worked very well together. We have a good working relationship right now and consistently from day one. So I think we're in a slightly different posture. And I also have the knowledge of having spoken with this most immediate previous counsel to be able to distinguish now the discovery that's come from the Commonwealth versus discovery that's sort of been funneled along from prior counsels. Okay? And I'm aware of that concern. And I'm working very hard to sort and go through everything with an eye towards what is duplicate and what is not. Okay? And be able to set aside what's duplicate. She says, I have every intent to do that as efficiently as possible going forward, which is probably very ambitious. But, you know, I don't know what, I couldn't continue the rest. But
here, I've got your friend on the screen.
Okay, and the judge says, if we could figure that out, you said 3 to 4 months, which is probably very ambitious. But, you know, I know, let's say that it's probably 4 or 6 months. Okay, let me see. So he's thinking about extending it 4 to 6 months. Okay, if they're going to extend it. Okay. Okay, this is what the judge says then. He says, he's asked the prosecutor if she has any concerns. She said no. And then the judge says, Mr. Al-Jari, you were advised last time you needed to cooperate with your lawyer. And here you are. And I appreciate that. And we will need to get this done to trial. And I suspect at least up until this very moment, you had previously been adamant about going to trial and not having any extensions.
So the judge admit on the record that Mustafa is adamant about going to trial. But hold on, outside the prosecutor...
Let me continue what Jean Brown responded to the judge. She says, I would say that he's still adamant that he wants the case to go forward as quickly as possible. Okay? And it was a very in-depth conversation that we had before we reached the point where we were able to file that motion, and that still remains his position today. He is ready for this to go forward as soon as possible. Okay? And judge says, I understand, and I appreciate the fact that you have apparently decided the fact that you wanted to go forward with your lawyer today and wanted to be ready on your case. So I'm going to grant the continuance, and I suspect, I don't know, are we all prepared to set it now? And they said no, they're not ready to set a date. So the judge agreed that this case, Mustafa is adamant about going to trial. He doesn't want too much of a continuance, but Mustafa is willing to work with his lawyer for a 3 to 4 month extension so that she can catch up, bring her expert that she has to bring in, and then go to trial. This is what they agreed on in court. And the judge, when he said, are you guys ready to set a date today? The prosecutor said, no, we're not ready. They're not ready. They don't have their dates ready.
The prosecution is not ready to go to trial.
Okay. Judge says, when do you think you'll be able to set it? She said, I want at least 2 weeks to be able to gather everyone's bad days.
So 3 years into a trial, and the prosecution is still not ready to go to trial. But they want to tell the court that Mustafa is the reason that this case is not going to trial. So one, they block the independent expert from reconstructing Mustafa's vehicle. 2, they're not ready. But here, Jean Brown, so far, she says she has a good relationship with Mustafa. And Mustafa wants to go to trial.
He's very adamant about not continuing. But she said she had an in-depth conversation with Mustafa about why she believes she needs a 3 to 4 month extension so that she can be prepared. Okay, that's fine. She said it's going to be an ambitious task for her to catch up with everything. Okay, so they decide that day that they're going to set it for 2 weeks so that everybody can get their days straight. Okay, now so Jean Brown says then they move on to, she says, Your Honor, obviously, I am a new counsel. I think that I would first cite all of the reasons or all of the statements that I made in my motion. So she submitted a motion, a written motion for bond, and also in the continuance motion. I have to ask for this continuance, which has now been granted. But we start from the point that as of today, Mr. Al-Jazari has been incarcerated continuously since 2 days after this car accident, which is April 7th, 2023.
I just want to interject. Right there, she's arguing the bond.
She's arguing the bond.
Now, Sarah Sammy gets up and she says, Your Honor, I want to remind you that she said that the defense attorney has to appeal your decision, Your Honor, because you ruled that you weren't going to give Mustafa a bond. And this is back under Blake Weiner.
I think she says it later on in these notes.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me just continue where I left off. So she's telling the judge that, let me see, where did I stop? So that Mustafa has been incarcerated 2 days after the accident, which is April 7th, 2023. This is approximately 34 months that he has been incarcerated continuously away from trial. And of course, I'm sure the Commonwealth will try to attribute some of that time as a fault on Mr. Al-Jazari's part. And I would submit with respect to that is not entirely accurate at all.
So the lawyer is telling the court that it's the prosecutor's fault. It's not Mustafa.
And the previous continuances, some of them were similar, that it had nothing to do with behavior of Mr. Al-Jazari, but simply that for whatever reason, a conflict developed. Some of those conflicts, I would say, were attributed to complaints by the Commonwealth regarding the family's actions or the family's interactions with prior counsel. As the court knows, for quite some period of time, that Mr. Al-Jazari's family, while they continue to be steadfast advocates for him and support for him, and their support has never waned from the beginning. They have done it in a way that recently and in recent months that is very different from what the Commonwealth previously complained of. And I would say that to a major extent, Mr. Al-Jazari himself has nothing to do with what the family does on their podcast.
So let me stop you.
For example, or how they choose to advocate for Mr. Al-Jazari.
She compliments the family, so she supports the family in their effort to bring out what the county is doing to Mustafa and falsifying his case. She's complimenting the family. She supports what the family is doing. She supports her client. That's telling the court. She's telling the court that he's working with her. She has no problem. He's communicating with her. She has no problem with her client. So she has no problem with her client. She has no problem with the family. And she's going up against a county and she's calling them out for falsifying this case. So far, that's what Jim Brown is telling the court.
Right.
And it's the prosecution. That's the problem, that this case is not moving to court. All right, go ahead.
Okay, she says he's not involved in that, referring to the family's advocacy. He's behind bars, behind closed doors, at the jail, essentially, in isolation. But for the time that he spends with his counsel and the limited time that he is able to communicate with his family by jail communication system. So I've asked the court to consider that he's really largely separate from that. But at this point, he has new counsel. His working relationship with counsel is very positive. And we are prepared and ready and are moving forward. Okay?
So if it's positive in February, what happened yesterday?
And then she says the family has not caused any disruptions to note in the court at all or on the court grounds. Okay? There hasn't been any concern about that. I can report absolutely no problems with interactions with the family whatsoever. And I think that makes a big difference as well. By necessity, I have to ask for a continuance, which means that potentially by the time this goes to trial, if Mr. Al-Jazari is not granted bond, he will have been incarcerated for almost 4 years before his case even goes to trial. I mean, that's crazy. 4 years held before trial. You've never waived your right to a speedy trial. Judge has ex parte communication with your lawyers. Judge has ex parte communications with whoever. The judge is prosecuting you from behind the bench. He's prosecuting your defense lawyers. He's sentencing them to jail. Like Elaine, she was sentenced to jail with time suspended. Nonetheless, she was sentenced to jail. Okay, so the judge is jailing your lawyers, okay, and he's barring them from practicing law in Prince William County. That's the judge.
That's what happened to Elaine Jarvis.
That's Judge Carol Weimer, the dishonorable Judge Carol Weimer. Okay? Let me continue back with what she says.
So, I mean, compare and contrast to what happened in February to what's going on yesterday in courts. I mean, what changed? Is she not willing to go up against a count? And that's a question that we come back to. We ask ourselves, what happened with Gene Brown, Mustafa's defense attorney?
Look at what she says next. Look, this is what she says on that day. She says, for somebody with zero criminal record whatsoever, I would submit that based on the origin of these charges, the facts as we know them now, I would ask the court to keep in mind that Mr. Al-Jazari is presumed to be innocent. And I think that it is extremely important. It's something that we often overlook when we're thinking about this. But he has no criminal record. He has a presumption of innocence. And we're talking about a car accident in which I would submit the Commonwealth has really little to no evidence of the criminal intent with which they continue to try to attribute him to. Did you hear what she just said?
So, no criminal history.
No, zero criminal history.
Details that show this is a car accident. And the prosecution have nothing to stand on.
The Commonwealth has
a case that's built on nothing.
I mean, this is what I wrote in quotes. Okay? He has a presumption of innocence. And we're talking about a car accident in which I would submit the Commonwealth has really little to no evidence of the criminal intent.
Look, I want to
with which they continue to try to attribute to him.
I want to remind everybody, there's a huge difference between me sitting on a podcast and saying this. This is literally what Mustafa's defense attorney is telling the courts.
In February of 2026. This is 2 months ago. 2 months ago. Okay.
The question is, what changed?
Okay. Then she says, this is in quotes, by the way. Zero evidence of that. We know that the evidence that they largely rely on, the evidence that's in the criminal complaint that the lead investigator filed at the very beginning of this, when they filed the first warrant against Mr. Al-Jazari, Investigator Drum put in his criminal complaint that Mr. Al-Jazari made statements regarding his argument theory that were absolutely not accurate. And we know that, fortunately, because that phone call was recorded.
So hold on now. She's telling the court that Investigator Robert Drum falsified Mustafa's statements.
She's telling that to the judge. That the lead investigator in his warrant lied. Okay? And I'm going to read to you word for word what she says. She says, because the phone call was recorded, that it didn't match what Investigator Drum wrote in his police report, nor did it match what he wrote in the criminal complaint that he filed.
So he falsified.
Hold on. Nor did it match with what he filed in the search warrants. And that's a major problem for the Commonwealth. We also know, as the court knows, that we had the motion in early January regarding Dr. Safinsky. And that was something, again, that a previous motions the Commonwealth had relied largely on is that theory of the lip reader.
So a major change in circumstances that allows Mustafa to get a bond. That the lip reader is kicked out, according to Mustafa's lawyer. The lip reader is kicked out, that the prosecution is relying on, that's been out of the case, kicked out of the case. 2, the warrant and Mustafa's statements have been falsified.
Okay, she says, again, that a previous motion Commonwealth has relied largely on is that along with this theory, when it's based on investigator Drum's not true statements that are in all of these filed documents and in his written police report, we know that this oral transliteration that the Commonwealth was intending to rely on is out. So the transliteration that the Commonwealth was relying on to supposedly prove Drum's lie, that's what they were counting on, he's out.
So a whole theory is built by a prosecution on the investigator lie. A falsified statement, a falsified warrant, a lip reader that's already been kicked out of the case. So a whole theory is built on nothing.
I'm going to read to you word for word. You know, when I have these in quotes, it's exactly what the lawyer said. So essentially, every piece of quote-unquote evidence that the Commonwealth intended to rely on as to intent in a car accident case is either inaccurate, completely inaccurate, or unreliable and not going to be part of the case. So I think that, again, it is a large part of what the change in circumstances are here. When we look at the consideration for bond, I think another issue that the Commonwealth relied on previously was that Mr. Al-Jazari had a pending charge in Stafford, which had subsequently been null prosecuted and will null prosecute. I think on the same day that Mr. Al-Jazari was arrested or the same week, everything related to that was null prost in Stafford. And it turned out that the complaint in that case actually, it turned out that the complainant in that case actually wrote a written statement saying that what it was based on was not, in fact, accurate. And that has been dismissed. She's talking about a case. She's talking about a case that was null prost. By the way, the case was brought by Sarah Sammy. It was in Prince William County. Mustafa had court. He had court the day after the accident. He showed up to court. The case was dismissed because the complainant in that case admitted that whatever was said to the police was a lie. The judge dismissed it. Okay? And that's what Prosecutor Sammy is essentially holding Mustafa without bond because of the lip reader and because of a case that was already dismissed.
So a lip reader that's been kicked off the case, a case that's already been dismissed.
That's not related to this one.
That's not related to this case. You're holding Mustafa in jail for 3 years and you're refusing to give him bond on a lip reader that's already been kicked out and a case that's already been dismissed. That's unrelated to this case.
So the judge says, let me see what. So Gene Brown says, I think to address that, I think that part of that is why I addressed the issue of the pending charges. She said Mustafa has no pending charges. He has 0 criminal record. Okay? Because I think the Commonwealth tried to make that seem like he had pending charges for domestic, something related to a domestic situation with a former girlfriend, which turned out to be, of course, inaccurate. And those all were null prost. Okay? So they can't rely on that. There were claims made regarding statements that were made to a jail officer. Mr. Al-Jazari has categorically denied that from the beginning. So Mustafa has denied every allegation that things were said.
Not only that, there's a witness that came forward that
let me just continue what.
Go ahead.
Let me continue what she said. Okay, and then you can comment on it.
All right, go ahead.
So Gene Brown says that Mr. Al-Jazari had categorically denied that from the beginning. She's talking about the jail incident. Mustafa had denied any of that from the beginning. And she says, I'm not sure that there's any actual evidence of that. I think the other thing that they tried to rely on was that he had a list of officers' names that they tried to attribute to some ill intent or ill will regarding that. There's nothing on that list that says that he had any ill will whatsoever. And if you watch some of the jail video that I have received in discovery, what you will see is that Mr. Al-Jazari, during his interaction with jail officers, and what I have seen on video, one, we know that he was assaulted by jail officers. This is quote unquote. She says he was assaulted by jail officers. And I have seen the video. He is almost unconscious afterwards. He has a head injury afterwards. And this was within a month and a half after he was first incarcerated in 2023. She's talking about the video when Mustafa was sexually assaulted.
Let me pull up the video for you.
His pants halfway down, unconscious, being dragged down a flight of steps after getting beat up by 6 officers.
She's talking about the video that Mustafa's previous defense attorney, Elaine Jarvis, released and was prosecuted by Judge Carol Weimer himself. The same judge that's listening to her right now. This video. And, you know, I find it really interesting that a lawyer is telling a judge, my client has been beaten up by guards inside the jail, and the judge doesn't say anything? You don't find that weird?
I mean, like, this is the...
Like, you don't find that weird? This is a video.
The lawyer just told you. The lawyer just told you. She just told you. I have seen a video in Discovery, okay, where my client was beaten, half unconscious. I mean, to quote her, word for word. She said, and if you watch some of the jail video that I have received in Discovery, what you will see is that Mr. Al-Jazari, during his interaction with jail officers, and what I have seen on video, one, we know that he was assaulted by jail officers, and I have seen the video. He is almost unconscious afterwards. He has a head injury afterwards. And this was within a month and a half after he was first incarcerated in 2023. And without going into, of course, there are 2 sides to that story, and different sides may have different ideas. But you can see that he was the one who was injured and was nearly unconscious, if not unconscious, when he was taken down the stairs from his cell. This is Gene Brown telling the judge, okay? I mean, you know, if you were in that courtroom, there was a deafening silence when she was talking about that. There was a silence in that courtroom.
Well, of course,
everybody's looking at each other.
Of course, there's a silence.
And she basically said, what she was unauthorized to say, which is the truth,
Muhammad,
which no lawyer have brought forward before, other than Elaine.
I take you back to Mustafa's bond hearing under Blake. And if you remember, we have the transcript where Sarah Sammy told Judge Weimer on the record that, Your Honor, it's all a figment of Mustafa's imagination. He was never assaulted inside the correctional officer. No one beat him up. And then all of a sudden, Mustafa's defense attorney, Elaine Jarvis, comes out with the video and she releases it on her podcast.
And they went hard after Elaine because she did that.
Now, the prosecutor can't say Mustafa is making it up because there's a video of him getting dragged unconscious, half naked down the stairs by 6 giant guards. And if I remember correctly, you brought this case in front of Judge Carol Weimer when was it?
February of 2024.
So the same judge that prosecuted Elaine Jarvis for coming out with the video is the same judge that listened to you for 2 hours.
2 hours.
And denied that Mustafa goes to the hospital. So no, I'm not surprised that this lawyer is, this judge is completely quiet.
I filed 4 or 5 or 6, I don't remember specifically, between 5 and 6 civil cases trying to obtain the video before anything was released. Okay? I filed 4 Freedom of Information Act requests that were all denied from the jail. And then I filed a civil lawsuit on 4 of them. 4 judges in the circuit court denied those. I was able to get Mustafa's medical record out of it. Okay. And then I filed for Mustafa's beating, for his to take him to the hospital.
These are Mustafa's injuries after he was beaten up.
I mean, I filed with the circuit court, and Judge Carol Weimer took that case. I specifically asked Carol Weimer to recuse himself from the civil case because he's overseeing the criminal case. And he flat out denied recusing himself. We went forward with a 2-hour hearing, okay? 2-hour hearing, which I have the transcript for. And I showed him evidence, without having the video, I showed him evidence that Mustafa was, in fact, beaten inside the jail. I showed him the medical records where they started issuing him ice packs all of a sudden out of nowhere on that date. And I showed him other cases where people were being abused. And Judge Carol Weimer, after looking at all the evidence, he says he's going to deny the motion to grant Mustafa medical help. But the same judge has somehow attached himself to Mustafa Al-Jazari. There's a reason why this judge refuses to recuse himself. He's in on it.
I mean,
He's in on it. He's a prosecutor in this case. No doubt about it. He's a prosecutor in this case, pretending to be a judge from behind the bench. He's practicing law from behind the bench. We know in other days where he gave, what's her name, the other prosecutor? Stephanie Buck. He gave Stephanie Buck the answer when she started stuttering.
I've never seen a case where the defendant is telling a judge that I'm not getting access to my discovery. Your Honor, I'm asking for the most basic thing in this case. I need access into my file. My lawyer is not showing me anything. I'm entitled to my discovery.
And the judge says, let's put a motion on the docket for a motion to withdraw from your counsel because you're complaining about her not showing you discovery. I'm not going to compel the lawyer to do her job. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to withdraw the lawyer and try to take away your legal representation. That's what Judge Weimer is doing. I mean, if you really think about yesterday's hearing,
it's a sham.
The prosecutor said nothing. Okay, I mean, the transcript is going to come out. The transcript's going to come out. And there's not going to be anything said by the prosecutor because the judge himself is prosecuting the case. He's responding where the prosecutor should respond. Because the prosecutor is just sitting there with nothing to say. And the judge is already answering for her.
What more do you need to find out that this judge is a prosecutor when the prosecutor gets up and says, Your Honor, since you denied the motion to withdraw, I'm going to withdraw my motion. We don't need to hear this motion to withdraw since you denied it.
And he says no.
Judge Weimer says, no, I'm going to keep it on the docket. We're going to keep it and we're going to go through it. You can't do that as a judge. You are not the fucking prosecutor.
You're not the prosecutor.
You're the judge.
Well, he's the prosecutor in this case. Let's see, where did I... Okay, I left off where Jean Brown is telling the dishonorable Judge Carol Weimer that she has seen a video from the discovery, okay, where Mustafa was assaulted by jail officers, and I have seen the video. He is almost unconscious afterwards. He had a head injury afterwards, and this was within a month and a month and a half after he was first incarcerated in 2023. Okay, she says that there are, of course, 2 sides to that story, and different sides may have different ideas. But what you can see that he was the one who was injured and was nearly unconscious, if not unconscious, when he was taken down the stairs from his cell. Okay? She says there is at least 1 inmate that witnessed it and had made a statement regarding what happened. And it is completely consistent with Mr. Al-Jazari's account. So we have the fact that he has been the victim of an assault within the jail, on top of the fact that he had a traumatic brain injury when he went into the jail 2 days after the accident. Okay? And so it would not be unusual, and I would submit that anyone in that situation would be advocating constantly for themselves. After something like that would happen. After such a traumatic car accident where he lost loved ones as well. And we think about this from Mr. Al-Jazari's standpoint. This was an unexpected car accident with a terrible, tragic result. And immediately afterwards, after he's hospitalized, he goes home with a traumatic brain injury, and he is subsequently, within days, arrested and had been in essentially solitary confinement without the support of his family or loved ones to process any of that. And on top of that, he has done everything that he could to advocate for himself from behind bars. And so I say all of that to address the court's concern, because I'm sure that the Commonwealth is going to address some of their claims about his jail behavior. So I say that to ask the court to keep in mind, from his perspective, that this would be a terribly frustrating and, of course, but scary situation to be in. Okay? And then she says, so it's not unusual afterwards. I have watched a video where he simply wants to know who he's interacting with after that in the jail. So after he's beaten, he wants to know who he's interacting with. He's asking to know what officers' names are, because he's in a situation where that's the only thing that he can really do, is try to keep track of who's there and who he's interacting with. Who is potentially someone that he feels safe with within the jail, and who is someone or people that he doesn't feel safe with. And I know Mr. Al-Jazari well enough to say that he has a very sharp intellect and a very sharp mind. He is somebody who wants to process all of the information and keep track of it. And to that extent, he keeps meticulous, copious notes of everything. So it's not unusual to me that he has a list of any number of things in his paperwork.
So hold on. The prosecutor is telling the court that Mustafa has a list of correctional officers.
In her words.
And
he has a sharp, in her words, in quotes, okay? She says, I know Mr. Al-Jazari well enough to say that he has a very sharp intellect and a very sharp mind. He's somebody who wants to process all of the information and wants to keep track of it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the same officer on his list is what Elaine Jarvis filed a lawsuit against this county jail behind me that beat and abused Mustafa?
Look.
So wait a minute.
Look.
So the prosecutor is demonizing Mustafa for keeping track of his abusers, that he's going to file a lawsuit, which is his constitutional right, that a lawyer actually filed a civil lawsuit for Mustafa, and the prosecutor wants to tell him, Your Honor, he has a list.
He has a list. Well, we can today.
A list of the officer that beat him, and he's filing a lawsuit against.
Look.
And the lawyer is telling the judge, Your Honor, this is what the list is for.
By the way, it's if you, anybody listening to this case, if you are sitting in solitary confinement based on falsified warrants, based on falsified information, you're sitting in jail, you don't know anybody around you, a bunch of officers come in and beat the living daylights out of you, you wake up in another cell, you have a traumatic brain injury on top of the traumatic brain injury from the accident, and you start writing down the names of those who abused you. In America, I say that's legal.
Take a hard look.
In America, you can take notes and you can file to sue who beat you up, who put their hands on you.
I mean, take a hard look at what they're doing.
When you're sitting in jail awaiting trial.
I mean, take a hard look at what they're doing to Mustafa in this video. I mean, we're watching this video. What is this video that's leaked? You have the same officer that beat you, the same officer that sexually assaulted you, are now in your cell telling you, hey, Mustafa, we're going to take you to the hospital.
And tactical.
But we're not in tactical, but we're not going to tell your family. We're not going to tell your lawyer. And Mustafa says, you're the officer that beat me. You're the officer that sexually assaulted me. And now you want to tell me you're going to take me to the hospital and tactical? I need to let my family know, at least let my lawyer know, because I think you're going to kill me.
Look.
And they want to flip the script and say, oh, Mustafa doesn't want to go to the hospital. Well, he's terrified. He's terrified. And there's a lot of ways that you can take him to the hospital without having the same officer that beat him and sexually assaulted him on that transport.
Exactly. I mean, look, today we're reading to you from what Jean Brown said on February 27th of 2026. Okay? This is what the lawyer is saying. This lawyer doesn't know Mustafa from Adam. Okay? She came onto the case after Brad Haywood was allowed to leave the case. Judge Carol Weimer apparently specifically spoke to this lawyer prior to her retainment with Mustafa. She tells Mustafa that she has a very deep relationship with the judge, which,
she's telling him that yesterday.
Look,
she's telling him that yesterday.
You can take that however you want.
She's telling him that yesterday, right before they hold the hearing to
withdraw her. For her to withdraw.
What exactly is she?
It almost sounds like a threat.
It's absolutely it's a threat. She's telling him, I'm going to get my way whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
Let's really process what's happening here. She tells Mustafa, I'm going to file a bond for you. She doesn't file a bond. I'll tell you why. Because the exculpatory body cam that they're withholding that has not been released, because Elaine Jarvis released a line of body cams, CCTV videos, that show what they've done to him inside. But there are missing CCTV video that show something else.
About the jail incident that the prosecutor used to deny him bond.
They released a CCTV video at 10:15 when the incident starts at 9:30. At 9:30 shows, because according to the witness, we already have his voice. He came forward and he said they went in, they beat Mustafa,
they assaulted him,
and they stepped on his religious book, his Quran. And now the jail says, no. Mustafa is the one that threatened us. Well, release the CCTV video that starts at 9:30. The problem for Jean Brown, Mustafa's lawyer, is Jean Brown goes up to the county, and the county tells her, do you know what you want us to release to you? So Mustafa's lawyer has an option. Either she goes up against the county and get that body cam, that CCTV from them, and file a bond for Mustafa, or just file a motion to withdraw and get herself out of this case.
If she's going to file for bond, she's going to have
to get that CCTV video.
Then she must ask the jail for the CCTV videos that Blake Weiner failed to ask for. Okay, when Mustafa was initially denied bond. If Jean Brown wants to go through with this bond, she's going to have to go up against the jail behind us.
So instead, she chooses to lie to Mustafa. She chooses to lie to Mustafa for as long as, she's been lying to, she's telling Mustafa, I'm going to file a bond for you. I'm going to file a bond for you. And she kept on lying to him until Mustafa put her on the record.
Let's assess what she told Mustafa yesterday, right before he's brought into court. So she hasn't seen Mustafa in over a month. He's been calling her nonstop. She doesn't answer. She tells him she's going to, her secretary tells Mustafa she's going to come tonight. She doesn't show up. She tells him she's going to come this weekend. She doesn't show up. This happened, based on my notes, at least 30 times in the last 60 days. At least 30 times where she said, I'm going to come see you, okay? And Mustafa says, she says she's going to come see me this weekend. And I tell Mustafa, my response is always, I'll believe it when I see it. Mustafa says, well, the lawyer says she's going to see me Friday. I say, I'll believe it when I see it, because it's happened over 30 times where she tells him specifically, I am coming to see you on this day. I understand, by the way, that a lawyer could have a busy schedule, but to tell your...
But not flat out lie to your client.
To tell your client 30 times... By the way, I'm what's the word?
Exaggerate?
I'm estimating. No, I'm not exaggerating. I'm estimating a minimum of 30 times where she told him, I'm going to come see you, and she doesn't show up. I understand you have a busy schedule, okay? But it almost feels like this is intentionally done to tarnish whatever relationship you have with Mustafa. You specifically want to destroy that.
Of course.
When you tell your client, who's sitting in jail, by the way, based on falsified information,
Based on what she's telling the
based
court.
on what Jean Brown said, what I just read, she's telling the court Mustafa was sitting in jail based on falsified material. And then you tell Mustafa, I'm going to come see you, and you don't come through with it. You tell him the biggest promise, which is I'm going to file an appeal for bond. What did Mustafa say yesterday, by the way? What did he say yesterday specifically to the judge? He said, Your Honor, I understand. If you can't file for bond, tell me you can't file for bond. If you think if the bond goes through and it's denied, I understand. But to flat out lie to me and tell me I'm going to file for bond and then you don't file it at all, you tell me on a specific date, you say, tomorrow I'm getting, by the way, 30 days after she promised him she was going to file for bond, she tells him, tomorrow I'm getting the transcript and I need the transcript in order to file the appeal. Okay, I'm waiting for the transcript and I'm getting it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes around, a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, and she does not tell him anything about it. Okay, we're checking on the outside. She's never filed it. Okay, to do that to somebody, you are intentionally destroying that relationship.
Not only that,
and then you want to come to the court and say, oh, the relationship has been deteriorated.
I mean, not only that,
no fucking shit. No shit. You have destroyed that relationship with your actions.
Not only that, not only do you lie to your client about filing a bond, you don't sit down with him about his exculpatory evidence, his file, his discovery. I mean, how is Mustafa supposed to build a relationship with his defense when his defense is constantly gaslighting him and lying to him about his file? Mustafa, I'm going to sit down with you. Mustafa, I'm going to come tonight and show you the body cams. Oops, my computer, I don't have the right file.
I brought the wrong file.
I brought the wrong file. And then the second time, she does the same thing. She never sat down with Mustafa and went over his body cam. She never went over the cell phone dump, the 1 terabyte. How is Mustafa supposed to build a relationship and trust you when you're lying
By
to
the way,
Mustafa?
I just want to say, if you're deemed indigent by the courts and you are assigned a court-appointed lawyer, you are entitled to a private investigator, which, I mean, I would assume any lawyer that's working on a case like this would like to have an extra helping hand in a case. But the attorney says, I don't need a private investigator. I'm not even going to apply for it. Why not? I mean, Brad Haywood, by the way, filed with the court for a private investigator, and that private investigator was paid thousands of dollars for his so-called work. But we still do not have any reports from that private investigator. What was his name? Sam what? Sam something?
I have his card.
Okay, Sam, the private investigator that Prince William County Court paid taxpayer dollars to that individual to investigate Mustafa's case, and we don't have a report of what you did?
Where is his findings?
He was paid thousands of dollars, taxpayer dollars.
Where are his findings?
Where are your findings? What did you find? What can you produce to Jean Brown to help her in her case? What did you do for Brad? We just want to know. What were you doing for Brad that you collected on thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars? You got thousands of dollars in the name of investigating for Mustafa Al-Jazari. What did you do with that money? Where's the work? Show us your work. I mean, I would like to think that if Amy Ashworth, who's the Commonwealth attorney for Prince William County, if you're going to allow money, taxpayer dollars, to leave the government funds and go to an entity, I would like to say that the citizens would like to know where that money went. Okay? We would like to know how that money was spent. That money was given to Brad Haywood, okay? And a giant portion of the money was given to Sam. I don't know his last name. Do you know his last name?
I have his business cards.
You don't have it right now?
I don't have it right now.
Okay, well, Sam needs to come up with what he did with that money. Okay, he was hired as a private investigator for Brad Haywood for the case of Mustafa Al-Jazari. Taxpayer dollars were given to Sam. Okay, now what could Jean Brown benefit from all those thousands of dollars that were spent on Sam doing some work? What was the work? I mean, if you interviewed somebody, I'd like to see a report where it says Sam interviewed X, Y, and Z. These are his findings. I mean, what did he do? I'm looking at the case documents. He was given thousands and thousands of dollars.
Samuel Dworkin.
Samuel what?
Dworkin.
Samuel Dworkin.
Dworkin.
Okay, Sam, what did you do with those thousands of dollars when you were allegedly investigating the case of Mustafa Al-Jazari? What did you do? How did you spend that money? I mean, did you drive to Fredericksburg to interview somebody? Did you travel somewhere? Did you buy equipment? What did you do? Thousands of dollars. Nothing.
So
it's a facade, by the way. It's a facade.
Absolutely.
They want to pretend. Look, I'm going to give this guy money who says he's a private investigator, and I'm going to show the community, look, Mustafa has a private investigator on his case, paid for by taxpayer dollars.
Yesterday, Mustafa asked Judge Carol Weimer, Your Honor, I filed a motion to compel my lawyer to sit down and go over discovery. Did you receive that motion? Judge Weimer acknowledged that he received it and that he read it. The question here is, why did Judge Weimer not hold a hearing for a motion to compel? Now, Mustafa stood in court and asked Judge Carol Weimer very specific questions. He said, Your Honor, my lawyer told me that she was going to file a bond for me. She didn't file a bond for me. Your Honor, there's a judge order, your judge order. The county paid money for an independent expert to get the vehicle reconstructed. My vehicle has not been reconstructed. And my lawyer is not telling me anything about the vehicle getting reconstructed by an independent expert. Mustafa told the judge, Judge Carol Weimer, Your Honor, you put in a judge order to have an independent expert, and the county paid money for that independent expert to go in and extract my dash camera with the audio, because evidence show that Officer Chad Mason cut and muted this dash camera. My lawyer, that has not been done, and my lawyer hasn't done it. As a matter of fact, the independent expert, there's a conflict of interest with Doug Lacey because he's the prosecutor's independent expert, and I'm entitled for an independent expert. Your Honor, my lawyer told me that she's going to go up to the prosecution and obtain the missing body cams that are missing out of my file. There's a line of body cams that on this podcast we've identified. This lawyer has not gone and obtained these body cams and has not sat down with Mustafa and went over those body cams. Your Honor, my lawyer is supposed to sit down with me and go over the 1 terabyte hard drive of my cell phone dump and my girlfriend's cell phone dump. She has 3 cell phones. It's all downloaded on 1 terabyte hard drive, and I'm supposed to be able to go through it. It's my constitutional right. I have a constitutional right. I can go over my discovery. My lawyer has not done that. Your Honor, my lawyer is refusing to sit down with me and go over discovery. I like you to compel my lawyer to go over discovery with me. I have no problem with my lawyer. I have a good relationship with my lawyer. I don't want her to withdraw out of this case. I simply want to go over my discovery. Your Honor, am I entitled to discovery? Judge Weimer does not compel Mustafa's lawyer to go over his discovery. And instead, he just tells him, you have a good lawyer. She knows what she's supposed to do. What does that mean? When the defendant is telling the judge that the lawyer is refusing to go over discovery, and the judge just brushes over it like he didn't hear anything. Completely ignore Mustafa's constitutional right being violated. What is really going on here? And instead, threaten Mustafa that he's going to hold another session and possibly he's going to get his lawyer removed and get her to withdraw out of this case. What is going on with this judge? What is going on with Gene Brown, Mustafa's defense attorney? I mean, it sure sounds, and instead of sitting down with your client and going over discovery, you're terrified to go over to this county. It sounds like she's terrified to go over to the prosecutor office and tell her, hey, there are missing body cams that I need for my client. It sure sounds you're terrified to get this vehicle reconstructed because the county knows this is a vehicle accident. It sure sounds you're terrified to demand an independent expert go in and look at this dash camera that showed they cut and muted this dash camera. I mean, I find it disturbing
Amar,
that the officer that handled this dash camera without a warrant has 4 different stories for this dash camera without a warrant. And today we have a dash camera that has no audio and is cut before impact. On a transcript, Chad Mason says
4 different things.
4 different things. We'll have a whole entire podcast, and we're going to go into what Chad Mason says. And I have a beautiful phone call with Internal Affairs to discuss that situation.
Look, I just want to say, I just want to bring you back a little bit to what I just read about what Jean Brown told the dishonorable Judge Carol Weimer, okay? She just told him that she watched a video in Discovery where Mustafa was beaten up and suffered a traumatic brain injury at the hands of correctional officers a month and a half into his incarceration. And I think the biggest telltale sign that the judge is not only lacks impartiality, but the judge is a prosecutor in this case. The biggest sign is that he never said, wait a second, you're his new lawyer, you're looking at the information, and you're telling me that this person in front of me, the defendant, suffered a traumatic brain injury after a tragic car accident where he lost...
Especially when she's telling him, I'm looking at a video.
He never questions. He never says anything about, what do you mean? I mean, any judge that is impartial, they would stop the hearing in its tracks and say, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean there's a video in the Discovery that you watched? What video are you talking about? He would bring that front and center if he was impartial, if in fact he was honorable. But he's not honorable, okay? And he's a prosecutor. And that is your biggest sign that he denied bond after hearing Mustafa's lawyer tell him he was beaten up and suffered a traumatic brain injury after being incarcerated, and it's on video. And the judge never questioned it. Why do you think the judge would not question it? He would not question it because he's a part of it. He's a part of the prosecution. The same way the prosecutor, she didn't stand up and say, Your Honor, that's not true. That's not true what the lawyer just said. Okay, I object to it. She didn't object to it. She said nothing. When it was time for her to talk, do you have anything to say? Prosecutor Sarah Sammy stood up and said, nothing. She said nothing. The judge, when he heard that, he said nothing. What does that tell you? When you're sitting in court, you're supposed to have an impartial judge. What that means is a judge that's not biased, a judge that looks at the facts and facts alone. But that's not what we have with this dishonorable judge, okay? He's a prosecutor pretending to be a judge. And when Mustafa yesterday asked him to recuse himself, he should have said, if he was honorable, he would have said, I recuse myself. I'm going to allow justice to take place. And he would bring in a different judge. There are many judges in this courthouse. They're not lacking judges, okay? But this judge specifically has tied himself to this case. He's held ex parte communication. He has stated on the record that he's calling his best friends to come in and represent Mustafa. You're calling your best friends to come in and represent Mustafa only to cover up for a dirty prosecutor, only to cover up for a dirty police department. That's why a judge would call upon his best friend. And by the way, I will say, the lawyer that he called, which was, what was his name? Clark?
Clark and...
John Clark? John Clark. Attorney John Clark, flat out withdrew from this case and said, hell no. I'm not doing a cover-up, a patch-up job for this county. I'm not doing it. Okay? That was Judge Carol Weimer's best friend, and he admitted on the transcript that he called this lawyer prior to Mustafa's representation. Basically, he called this lawyer to cover up for a dirty police department and a dirty prosecutor on a dirty, falsified case. That's what dishonorable judges do. They're going against the law. I mean, look, you're not recreating the wheel here. There's rules, policy, and procedure for the judicial branch, okay? The canon rules for judges, okay, they're set in stone. If there is question of impartiality, the judge is supposed to recuse himself. He's supposed to automatically refuse himself without somebody asking him to, because it just does not look good to the public. It doesn't look good to the public. You have a kangaroo court here in Prince William County. The judge is a prosecutor, okay? He's calling his best friends. You don't have to take my word for it. Read it directly from the transcript. I'm calling my best friend to see if I can get him to represent Mustafa. That is considered ex parte. When you talk to Mustafa's lawyer on a phone call, that's ex parte. If you're getting Mustafa's letters to your doctor's appointments, that's ex parte. You're not following the rules. You're not following the rules, okay? And this judge was asked by Mustafa yesterday to recuse himself. The lawyer keeps telling Mustafa as a threat, the judge is my best friend. I have a deep and big relationship with this judge. She's threatening Mustafa that she will get her way. And what did we see yesterday? After the prosecutor withdrew her motion, the judge says, nope, the motion will go forward. The judge is deciding what the prosecutor will file. That is not an impartial judge. It's a sham court. It's a kangaroo court. And this judge is 100% dishonorable. Okay, he's dishonorable. And he should be jailed, to be honest with you. This judge should go to jail for violating the law. You're violating the law. Flat out violent on the record. Anybody could go read the transcript. He says he's calling people, lawyers, behind the court's back. He's doing it in private. He's calling lawyers one by one. And what do we know about lawyers that are being called by the judge? They're getting death threats for taking Mustafa's case.
Elaine Jarvis is telling you flat out that she's been threatened by the police.
They're getting threats. I mean, Brad Haywood, before he was appointed counsel, received a phone call from Judge Carol Weimer's clerk. Okay? So we know for a fact at that point.
According to Brad Haywood himself.
According to Brad Haywood himself.
On a recorded line.
On a recorded line. According to Brad Haywood himself. He got a phone call from Judge Carol Weimer's clerk, and then he received a threat before he was retained and appointed for Mustafa. What does that tell you? The threats to these lawyers are coming from the judge's chambers. That's where they're coming from. You know, it takes a lot of energy to be here. It's very cold, but as a citizen of the United States, you know, you have to hold public officials accountable. Because in America, you pay their salary. We are paying their salary. We expect them to follow the law. And if anything out of this entire conversation, out of all these podcasts, we are within our constitutional rights to follow a public case, to disclose the information to the public, okay? And we're within our rights to question what they're doing to the citizens of this county.
Absolutely.
Mustafa is a citizen.
Absolutely.
He has been violated. Okay, he has been beaten. Police have falsified sworn oath statements that were sworn an oath to by Robert Drum, by Davis. Chad Mason took the dash cam out of, violated the chain of custody, which ultimately decides the authenticity of this material. He admitted openly in court that he violated the chain of custody. He took Mustafa's dash cam, took that SD card, and tampered with the files specifically when it was not his job to do so. There's a whole department for evidence, for digital evidence.
Yeah, right there. It was right.
Okay? There's a whole department. But he decided on his own, in accordance with the crook, the criminal, Robert Drum, okay? In accordance with Robert Drum, the criminal, He took those files and they tampered with it.
You know, I'll tell you, it's one thing when someone says that. It's another thing when you have the official transcript of what Chad Mason said on the stand on October 31st, 2025, during a motion to dismiss. We're quickly going to brush over this, but we're going to have to hold an entire podcast to really understand what this officer have done to Mustafa's dash camera without a warrant.
Okay.
I mean, this is a document. This is a transcript from the motion to dismiss. On page 15, Chad Mason is asked by the defense attorney.
On October 31st, 2024?
On October 31st, 2024. Blake Weiner asked Chad Mason, and between the time that the crash occurred and you eventually obtained a search warrant, did you ever or did anybody remove the dash camera from the vehicle? Chad Mason tell you no.
He said no.
He said no. Explain to me why. On page 17, Chad Mason says, line 12, he says, photographed it, and then it was taken back to my vehicle. Now, that's before obtaining a warrant. You just said two different things.
That's two different things.
Explain to me why. On page 22, Chad Mason says, on line 16, it was returned to my department to see if there were actually files on the card.
Before getting a warrant.
That's before getting a warrant. That's three different timelines.
Okay. Forget the warrant part. Forget the warrant part. You just said three different things. Chad Mason just said three different things.
Let me get to the best part.
Get to it.
On page 24, Chad Mason says, on page 24, he says, Lieutenant Peake had the camera, but it was transported by another investigator. So now the timeline changes to a whole completely different thing. He says he gave it to Lieutenant Peake to secure in his vehicle until a warrant was obtained, and then they transported it to this officer. That's four different timelines. Which one is it, Chad Mason?
Which one is it?
Was the dash camera never removed before obtaining a warrant? That's what you said. Then you tell us on page 15 that it was taken back to your vehicle before you obtain a warrant. You took the SD card, plugged it into your computer, went through this dash camera, and then on page 17, you give us a whole completely different outline, a whole completely different timeline. You said you took it back to your department.
Here's what I will
say. And then took the SD card, plugged it into your computer.
To see if there's files, by the way.
To see if there's files. And then, all of a sudden, now you're telling us on page 24, no, I gave it to Lieutenant Sean Peake.
Which, by the way,
secured it on in his vehicle, and then got a warrant, and then I took the dash camera.
By the way.
Which one is it? Because today we have a dash camera that has no audio, and it's cut before impact, and there are 17 frames missing from the camera facing inside the vehicle. Did you cut and mute Mustafa's dash camera?
Yes, he did. And by the way, I just want to say that Lieutenant Sean Peake swore an affidavit to what he claims happened. So Lieutenant Sean Peake is either lying or Chad Mason's lying.
Him and Davis. Him and Investigator Davis.
And Davis.
The same officers involved in crushing and staging Mustafa's vehicle.
I mean, I'll tell you, before we go back to what happened on February of 2026, the way that Rob Davis conducts his interviews with so-called witnesses in this case is just beyond weird. Okay? It's beyond weird. Okay? I'm referring to the interview where he questioned Toby at the 7-Eleven. You show up to somebody's workplace and you corner them and you try to insert statements in their mouth, things that they are never saying, they're not saying. Toby said, I didn't say anything about abuse. And Davis is trying to shove down his throat this statement about abuse.
Davis reword what Toby said at 7-Eleven. On body cam. You can hear him reword what Toby's telling him.
By the way, Toby's at work. Yeah. Just remember, Toby is at work at 7-Eleven. He's on the clock. Rob Davis shows up out of nowhere and begins, what's the word? Interrogating Toby in the corner near the fridge. okay, in the store. These tactics, by the way, you only see that in movies by the mob.
And by the way, when Toby has good things to say about Mustafa on a police body cam, what do? They remove Toby altogether out of Mustafa's file.
They remove him from the case.
They're no longer using Toby as a witness.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Because the body cam leaked, and what's on the transcript from what Davis
it's not matching
said,
up.
It's not
to
matching
the
up
video.
with the body cam.
It's not matching. If you read the statements that they put in writing about Toby, you would say, "Wow, this is a witness against Mustafa." But you watch the body cam and you see the mob mentality, the mob behavior by Rob Davis, and how he basically showed up to a man's workplace only to shove down his throat and intimidate him into saying something negative about Mustafa. When that body cam leaked, prosecutors decided Toby was no longer going to be a witness in this case.
I mean, I'll take you back to, we just read the transcript of Officer Chad Mason giving you 4 different timelines.
4 scenarios.
4 scenarios, right? Explain to me how, this was October 31st, 2024. Explain to me how on September 16, 2025, the prosecutor, Sarah Sammy, is arguing to Judge Weimer how an independent expert shouldn't come in and examine this dash camera. And she's telling him, Your Honor, I'm terrified that the chain of custody might be broken. Well, no shit, Sherlock. The chain of custody have already been broken when your officer is handling this dash camera and he's given 4 different
without
stories.
Authorization.
Without a warrant.
Without a warrant, without authorization. It's not his job. He said, it's not my job. Yeah, he did it anyways.
That means what that basically means is that he violated department policy because he's supposed to only package this dash camera
and send it to digital forensics.
Digital forensic. He didn't do that.
He didn't do
Instead,
that.
he operated that dash camera without a warrant.
Let me reword that. He tampered with the files with the SD card, and then he sent it to digital forensics. But he did, nonetheless, sit there on that SD card for hours. Hours, according to evidence.com logs.
We have the log, and you went over
We
that
have
log.
the logs. We went through the logs, and he sat there for hours manipulating those files.
You know, I want to go over what Sarah Sammy is telling the court. And I want this community to tell me this makes sense. Sarah Sammy, on this transcript, on September 16, Sarah Sammy tells the judge, and that's her argument why an independent expert should not go in because of the chain of custody. Listen to what Sarah Sammy says. Sarah Sammy says, we would adamantly object to the request that the defense has. I want to make it abundantly clear that at all times since the inception of this case, the Commonwealth has indicated that all items of physical evidence are available for the defense to inspect. That's not true. We're watching on body cam. You're blocking the independent expert from inspecting the vehicle and accessing the dash camera, according to Brad Haywood, Mustafa's defense attorney. And then Sarah Sammy goes on, we've provided the full extraction to the dash camera to them. And I know the raw data has not been provided. However, that is something we are willing to provide. That's a flat out lie because Mustafa's dash camera up in the cloud on evidence.com is only uploaded after on the 5th when the warrant says, the actual warrant for the dash camera
was 2 days after.
They haven't uploaded the full dash camera to the cloud.
Exactly. And there are files missing from that dash cam. There's files missing.
There are files that are missing from Mustafa's dash camera. They have not.
That we got from the cloud. We got files from the cloud that are not on evidence.com from the date of the warrant.
Look, the bottom line is the day before is missing.
The day itself is missing.
The day itself is missing.
April 5th is missing.
Portions of April 5th is missing, and the day before is missing. So when Sarah Sammy tells the judge that we've uploaded and gave the defense the whole dash camera, no, that's not true.
We know that's a lie.
Okay? And we have the transcript where Brad Haywood is telling the judge, I don't have the full dash camera, Your Honor. So Sarah Sammy then goes on, and then she says, I think what the Commonwealth issue is and concern is this, is that the defense is requesting to physically take the item of evidence outside the chain of custody of the police department, take them to an unknown location, and perform those examination. That takes the item out of the chain of custody of law enforcement and essentially we would absolutely have issue providing chain. Wait,
you mean like what Chad Mason did? You have a problem with what Chad Mason did. You're explaining what Chad Mason did, and you're saying that's why you don't want to provide it to the defense, because somebody is going to do what Chad Mason did.
Are you seriously going to argue chain of custody to Judge Weimer when the chain of custody has already been broken by your officer, according to your officer, on the records?
That's crazy.
I mean, it's not really that. It's crazy when she thinks that the file is not leaked and there is no media outlet that's going to report on this case, and there's a vacuum. And you know what happened when the media is no longer covering the situation? It leaves a vacuum of corruption. You have a prosecutor that's rogue. You have a police officer that thinks he can do whatever he wants. And since there's no media coverage, this community is today's Saturday.
In the dark.
I mean, this community is in the dark. I mean, today is Saturday. This community is entrusting our police department, our prosecution office, our judicial system to do their job. They entrust the system to do their job. They're not expecting a police department to falsify a case. And if they are, the media would tell the community about it. Right. Well, what do you do when NBC4, Julie Carey, is in the back pocket of this community? I mean, DeShondra Jefferson is all over Facebook talking about some bullshit, and is no longer, this community no longer hears about what's going on with Mustafa's case. I thought 3 years ago, it was all over NBC4 that this man murdered his family. Why is it that this community is left in the dark?
Let's put it like this.
Oh, wait a minute, because they actually crushed his vehicle. They cut and muted his dash camera. And now the prosecution is using officers that falsified a whole entire case, so they can no longer let this community on the details.
Amar, listen to the narrative that the police put out when Mustafa was arrested. They put out on the media, the police department put out on the media, that Dorothy was on the phone calling her friend.
That's bullshit.
Begging for help as this thing was taking place.
You know, I'll tell you something that's really funny.
Listen to that for a second. The police department put out a narrative on Fox 5 that Dorothy was on the phone calling her best friend for help as this thing was taking place.
I'd like you to repeat that narrative, watching the sealed dash camera leaked.
That is crazy. The police department.
Where Dorothy is entering the vehicle. By the way, this sealed dash camera that now is leaked on Instagram have reached 12,000 views. 12,000 views. Where Dorothy is entering the vehicle with flowers in her hands.
But the prosecutor, day one, I have it in my notes, she said, Mustafa kidnapped Dorothy, forced her into the vehicle. They were arguing, he forced her into the vehicle, and then crashed his car into oncoming. This is what the prosecutor said on day one of Mustafa's hearing.
12,000 people on Facebook, on Instagram, are watching a dash camera that's officially sealed by the county, that now is leaked, that's watching Dorothy enter with flowers in her hand. Explain to me, I mean,
you want to tell me that's kidnapping?
The prosecution has a giant problem because everybody and their grandmother is on Instagram and Facebook. So when the county comes out with this official story that Mustafa kidnapped his family, and now they're watching a dash camera that Dorothy is entering into Mustafa's vehicle with flowers, where Mustafa is washing the car before they entered, is perfuming the vehicle.
And then he tells her to put on Empress's seatbelt.
Remind me, if I remember correctly, they told this community that Empress, 5-year-old Empress, was not buckled.
That's what they tell.
Why is it that Mustafa is reminding Dorothy, hey, can you buckle Empress? And then you have a police body cam that's leaked where the officer says the Empress was buckled?
But the prosecutor in court says the opposite. This is what we're dealing with today. A prosecutor that is willing to lie, to put out her narrative. I mean, we saw yesterday, by the way, the most awkward court hearing that you can ever see. Almost 40 people from the county.
40 agents from the prosecution
40 agents from the prosecution's office sitting in court. 40. 2 prosecutor in the front, Stephanie Buck and Sarah Sammy. And then you have 3 additional agents who are actively reviewing the motion. They're sitting there. They're underlining. They're highlighting. They're circling. Okay? They're all going through this motion, these 3 individuals. They're going through this motion, and right before the court proceeding starts, one of them takes the packets with the notes. He goes to Sarah Sammy, and he's updating her on what they're working on. So 5 official prosecutors, 2 official prosecutors, 3 in the shadows, okay? And then you have 25 to 30 agents sitting behind them. One of them had a dog with her.
Even the dog.
Even the dog is showing up to court.
I'll tell you something that's
okay,
really
even the dog is taking notes on what's going on. These people are sitting in court by these are agents of the county, of the prosecution office. Agents sitting there to provide a cover for a falsified case.
I think yesterday was a show of force. I mean, if you really analyze what's going on yesterday, you have just about 40 people from the prosecution office sitting in court in a courtroom that's completely empty. No one from this community knows about this case. No one from this community is actually in the courtroom watching what they're doing to this case. And one of those one person from the prosecution office goes over to one person.
Let me say that. Let me say it. Hold on. So we're sitting in court. Clearly, those 25 to 30 individuals are all together with the prosecutor because they're all huddled up. Then they go into the courtroom, okay? You have 2 prosecutors. You have 3 prosecutors in the shadows that are not in the case, but they are sitting there reviewing documents for Mustafa al-Jazari, okay? And then you have the 30 agents sitting behind them. An individual, an African-American individual, walks in. He's well-dressed. He sits on the other side in the courtroom.
They're so terrified.
And then one of those agents goes up to him, and she's asking, are you here for the Mustafa al-Jazari case? And what's your involvement in this? Why are you?
I thought this was a public case.
Essentially, anyone that walks in is going to be questioned. Why are you here? Are you from an agency? Are you from an organization? Why are you here? Why are you here to listen to this case?
They're terrified.
What is the purpose of you being in this court? These are agents of the county. And if you walk in to this so-called public hearing, if you walk in, you will be interrogated. You'll be intimidated. I've had people come in from the community that tell me I was denied access into Mustafa's courtroom because a deputy at the door told me I was not allowed to be in the courtroom. This is a public hearing. But you have officers at the door trying to intimidate people from coming in and to listen to what's going on.
You know what I mean?
They've tried to seal the case. They've tried to conceal what they're doing to Mustafa. But we are reading to you what an officer of the court has said. What I just read to you earlier.
Let me ask you a real question.
Is an officer of the court statement.
How does that work out for them? I mean, Julie Carey with NBC4, yeah, she's in their back pocket. There's no media coverage ever since the file leaked and the community is watching how they're falsifying this case. How is this really working out for them? I mean, for 40 agents from the prosecution office to sit.
40 agents.
And then they look back, and I'm all the way in the back of the courtroom. I've got my own media outlet, and I built enough trust with this community where I'm providing this community the sealed material that the prosecution office is hiding from this community. I've got the body cams, I've got the documents, I've got the dash camera that they're sealing from this community, and we're all watching what they're doing in the Mustafa al-Jazari. That's the problem that the prosecution office has. They're terrified. They're terrified from transparency. And you know, I'll tell you, this community at large at Prince William County should be terrified of what's coming out of this courtroom. Forget Mustafa. Forget what they're doing to Mustafa. I mean, if they can get away with doing this, if a fraction of what I'm talking about is true, you should be fucking terrified. If a fraction of what I'm talking about is true, you should be terrified. I mean, it's Saturday night, and you trust your police department and your prosecution in this so-called judicial system to work. But what we're finding out is that
we're finding out that
is Mustafa's vehicle crushed? Yeah, the police crushed Mustafa's vehicle.
The main piece of evidence.
The main piece of evidence. They want to tell you that Mustafa is a criminal, that Mustafa intentionally crashed his vehicle and killed his family. Then why the fuck did you crush the car? Why did you crush the car? I thought you want to prove your case, Prosecutor Sarah Sammy.
Yeah, what happened to preserving the evidence?
What happened to preserving the evidence? You crushed the car.
Chain of custody, okay, with the dash cam was violated.
Why did you break the chain of custody on the dash camera? Today you have a dash camera. By the way, everybody's asking the same question. Why is this dash camera cut? Where is the accident?
Where's the rest of it?
Where's the crash? Where's this audio? Wait a minute. You're telling me that there is audio? Then where's the audio? And then you find out the officer has 4 different stories to what happened to this dash camera. And today, the dash camera has no audio. It's cut before impact. I mean, you want to tell me you're not going to be terrified? I mean, this community has a business. And you have a business. You bought a house. You have a family. You entrust that nothing is going to happen. You're not going to have an officer that's going to falsify your case.
You entrust that when you put a camera in your car, it's going to record everything.
I remind you, if a fraction of what I'm talking about is true, you don't have a safe community. I think what we're going to do, we're going to go over the rest.
I'm going to go over what Gene Brown, Mustafa's court-appointed lawyer, said in the last hearing and what changed today. Why today she wants to withdraw out of the case out of the blue. Okay? She promised Mustafa she was going to file an appeal for the bond denial. That has not happened in the last 60 days. She promised Mustafa that she was going to bring in the discovery, specifically the missing body cams from Chad Mason, the 1 terabyte hard drive of the cell phone data dump, okay, and other pieces of information that Brad Haywood failed to do, that Blake Weiner failed to show Mustafa. This lawyer said to Mustafa from day one, I'm going to show you all of the evidence and we're going to go through it together. We're going to be ready for a trial. All of a sudden, the lawyer wants to withdraw after failing to meet the most basic expectations of representing her client. What did Gene Brown say last hearing on February 27th, 2026? She says to the judge, after telling him that she watched the video of Mustafa getting beat up by jail officers, after telling him that this video is in a discovery, she says, I have watched Mr. Al-Jazari now repeatedly interact with officers in the jail. He has 2 escorts when he comes to see me. There is always a very positive interaction between him and the officers when I am there. And I have had feedback from officers who have told me that they think that he is very respectful, that they have no issues with him whatsoever, and that they enjoy talking with him. This is what Gene Brown is telling.
What changed today?
This is what Gene Brown, court-appointed lawyer, is telling the dishonorable Judge Carol Weimer. So I asked the court to keep that in mind as well. The dangerousness, I'm trying to recall whether there was really anything else that the Commonwealth can bring as far as the statements that they rely on to show his ill intent. She's referring back to the list of jail officers that Mustafa had in his cell. Though that same list was provided to attorney Elaine Jarvis, where she filed a civil rights violation 1983 federal lawsuit in the Eastern District of Virginia against those officers on that list.
So basically she's calling out the prosecutor, demonizing that Mustafa has a list, correctional officer. No, these are the officers that beat and abused Mustafa, and he's filing a lawsuit against those officers.
Exactly. Mustafa has a right to write down the names of his abusers. He has the right to file a civil rights violation, 1983 case, civil rights. Okay, and that's what that list was used for. The prosecutor wants to tell us, without any evidence, that there was ill intent with this list. That's what she wants to tell us. But there's no evidence to it whatsoever. It's all in her head. She wants to make up an accusation. By the way, if you had an impartial judge, the judge would tell the prosecutor, what is your evidence?
What's your evidence?
What,
Absolutely.
other than the list of officers, which, by the way, Mustafa can prove, Mustafa's attorney can prove, this list was used in a civil lawsuit, in a federally filed lawsuit. Okay? What is your evidence to the prosecutor? And the answer is nothing. Nothing. She has no evidence. Just a theory she made up on the fly to hold Mustafa from getting bond.
This is the same prosecutor that is accusing you that you got an AR-15 with 1,000 bullets. She's accusing me of going after her.
That's right.
With no evidence.
That's right. She accused me of...
She accused the mother of assaulting her in court. What's your evidence?
What's your evidence?
At the end of the day, this judge is allowing this prosecutor to just say whatever she wants. And take it as face value.
Hold on. Let's slow down a little bit. She stated, Sarah Sammy put in a motion that I purchased an AR-15 style rifle and 1,000 rounds. She stated that to the court. Okay. She said that you followed the prosecutor to her car. She says Mustafa's mother has touched her inappropriately or something like that.
Assaulted her.
Okay. Yet I don't see any police reports to any of these allegations. Okay. First of all, I don't remember it being a crime to buy a weapon. Even though I'm saying I did not purchase an AR style rifle, whatever she said is a lie. It's not a crime to purchase a weapon. That's number one. We're living in America. Okay, I don't know where this prosecutor thinks she's living, but we today are in America where you have rights as a citizen. Okay, and the prosecutor wants to just come up with...
You have a right to your Second Amendment.
That is a right that I have. Okay, that I can practice if I want to. But I'm saying it's not true, okay? If she wants to say that you followed the prosecutor to her vehicle, where is the police report?
You want to tell me that I followed the prosecutor and you don't have a police report?
And you didn't call the police? You want to say the mother of...
And the judge is going to take that at face value?
You know what I find interesting?
I mean, hold on. Wait. I'm on the county jail's right behind me. The sheriff office is right there. I'm in every courtroom. You're telling me an individual that followed the prosecutor to her vehicle is sitting in the courtroom reporting on this case?
Make it make sense. It won't make sense. Okay?
The mother that assaulted her, there's no police report. There's no, I mean, you're saying that the mother assaulted you in court. Where's the CCTV video from the mother assaulting you in court? Where's the police report?
This is what I'm saying. You want to claim that Amar followed you to your vehicle. Did you call the police? Have you ever been approached by the police asking you, why did you follow Prosecutor Sammy to her car?
Never. I only found out about what she's claiming after I got the motion.
Okay, so we know,
public record now.
We know that's a lie. Mustafa's mother is accused of physically assaulting the prosecutor in the courtroom. Did she call the police? Did she report it to the judge? Did she report it to the authorities? No, she did not.
You only find it, let me tell you only find her making those claims when she wants to get a certain motion passed, motion forward.
To sequester the jury.
Motion to sequester the jury. She wants to sequester the jury so bad. Let me tell you about sequestering the jury. You want to put the jury in a van, in a vehicle,
with Robert Trump.
The officers, the police department that falsified this case. I mean, what is coming out of this case exactly? Oh, the officer falsified Mustafa's statement. The officer crushed Mustafa's vehicle. The officer cut and muted this dash camera. How hard is it? Oh, what does she want to do? She want to take the jury to where the accident happened. So in between
the courthouse,
and the road, she wants to put an officer in the van.
With
and
the jury.
How hard is it to tell the jury, did you know? I mean, all we have to do is watch what the body cams of what those officers are doing.
Did with the alleged witnesses.
They're manipulating the witnesses in the real time on body cams that have leaked. So how hard is it to sequester the jury and then put an officer that brainwash the jury into telling them what? I mean, you got a uniform, you've got a badge. The jury is more likely going to believe this officer and to telling them whatever they want to tell them. And it's not like that hasn't happened before. It's on body cams that have now been leaked. She wants to sequester the jury so bad, even if she's going to lie about the family, even if there's no evidence of assault. I mean, the mother attacked her. The brother attacked her. You're buying an AR-15. What the fuck what is going on with this family?
It looks like a family of criminals.
My favorite part is
if you listen to the prosecutor.
You know, my favorite part is she's calling the family in court. She's like, the family. Judge Weimer at one point he's like, we only sequester juries in like mob cases. Are you referring to the family as like a mob family, or are you just referring to the family as a regular family? Because I'm looking at the family in the courtroom. That's the family. I mean, the mom, the dad, the brother. Okay, we're not talking about a mob family. I can't sequester the jury for you. This is not a mob case. What the fuck are we talking about?
This is, again, a dishonorable judge who's practicing law from the bench. So I don't doubt it that he's going to give her what she wants down the road. I don't doubt it, because clearly he thinks he's invincible. He thinks he's untouchable by the law.
Well, there is a vacuum in this case, which is the media. The media is in the back pocket of the county. Since they're not telling the community what they're hoping, by the way, they're hoping that no one is going to find out about what the judge is doing, what the prosecutor is doing. But I have news for them. We are the media in this case. And if 12,000 people are watching a sealed dash camera leaked and they're questioning what the prosecution office is putting out, I remind this prosecution office, when you get a dash camera that has 12,000 views on Instagram, and then other body cams that are reaching 200,000 views, other body cams that are reaching 1 million view.
Okay, let me
Instagram, everybody and their grandmother is on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah,
so everybody and their grandmother is on Instagram and Facebook. So if you think you're comfortable because Julie Carey is not reporting on it, I remind you that when Instagram, when people are watching these body cams that are leaked, sealed but leaked, everybody and their grandmother is on Instagram and Facebook. So
let me just finish this real quick.
We're almost done, right?
Yeah, I just want to go through what this lawyer said to the judge.
Go ahead.
And people can judge for themselves if this judge was unreasonable when he simply denied that bond hearing, that bond motion. Okay? I'm going to read to you exactly what this lawyer told the judge. Okay? And people can judge for themselves whether this judge was being impartial or he had his mind already made up. Okay? And I will make a statement here. I will say that everything that Gene Brown said about the video showing Mustafa was beaten, that video that was in Discovery, about his rights being violated, how he's been incarcerated for over 3 years without trial, how police have falsified his entire case, how the prosecutor is charging him based on an unprovable theory without evidence. This is what Gene Brown is telling the dishonorable Judge Carol Weimer. Okay? She says, I'm trying to recall, after she says that Mustafa and officers enjoy talking to him, she said, so I asked the court to keep that in mind as well. And then she says, I'm trying to recall whether there was really anything else that the Commonwealth can bring as far as the statements that they rely on to show his ill intent, referring to the car accident. We're not talking about a situation that involved any sort of weapon. The statements that he was having an argument beforehand have, as I said, that's not at all what Mr. Al-Jazari said. That's not the case. There was no argument going on at the time of this accident whatsoever. So the Commonwealth relying on that is simple. It's simply there's nothing there. In terms of any outside other behavior, Mr. Al-Jazari has a stable place to live. His family, of course, continues to support him. It's the same address where he was arrested. It's the same address that was proffered to the court before. He's willing to hand over. He has been willing to hand over his passport. He said he'll hand over his driver's license. He is literally willing to abide by any condition that the court is willing to put on him. With respect to the court's concern about flight and or dangerousness, I can tell the court that any restrictions that the court makes a condition of any bond, he is willing to abide by. And I've spoken with the bail bondsman. Okay, she spoke to somebody specifically at the bail bondsman company here, and he says they have a GPS available and ready to go. So even the bond company that have reviewed this case, they're willing to put a GPS tracker on him. Okay, and he's willing.
She's telling the judge there is major change of circumstances.
Let me finish what she says. She says, I know Mr. Al-Jazari was previously found appropriate for intensive pretrial. So even pretrial has conducted an interview. They went through Mustafa's file, and they've agreed that Mustafa is eligible for pretrial release. So that is also an option. But the fact that his address in Stafford may make more sense if the court were inclined to grant him a bond, to make it a condition of his bond. He's more than happy to pay the cost of the GPS along with the bond. And as I said, the bond company is ready and willing to supervise Mr. Al-Jazari while he's on bond to make sure that there are no concerns about any violation of the bond. He is ready to do that today. I spoke with him to confirm that again today. I'm happy to address any additional concerns about danger to the community, but I would submit that I can't think of anything else that has been previously relied upon by the Commonwealth that can't be addressed by the conditions that this court previously thought were appropriate and granted a $5,000 cash or corporate surety. I believe with the GPS and the Commonwealth motion to reconsider that bond and the hearing that occurred in May of 2024, I hope that I addressed the primary issues or things that the Commonwealth brought back on their motion to reconsider, specifically related to the fact that they relied in large part on what Investigator Drum had stated in his report and all those other written documents. I note that some of that may also have relied on Officer Mason in his statements regarding Mr. Al-Jazari's demeanor at the hospital, in which it's clear also, and this was maybe a day later or in fact the same day. It's clear that it's clear that both Officer Mason and Investigator Drum shared the same intent to make a decision on their own within minutes of the car accident about what they think happened. And that has clearly influenced every single thing in this case. Every single step from that moment on, from one of the first arriving officers on the scene who made a conclusion without any evidence that, oh, this guy is on drugs. And that changed the tone of the entire investigation within minutes after the accident. Okay? So
even though his blood showed no alcohol, no drugs.
And by the way, just remember, this is not me speaking. This is court-appointed lawyer Gene Brown telling the judge all this information, that the police officers have decided within minutes after arriving on the scene that Mustafa is going to be guilty of something. Okay? That the first officer to arrive assumed without evidence that Mustafa was on drugs, created manufactured probable cause in order to issue those warrants. By the way, the warrants that were not executed properly.
That's not the first lawyer that's saying this. Brad Haywood said the same exact thing.
Okay, so this is what this lawyer is saying. And she says there's absolutely zero support for that whatsoever. She's talking about what Mason, Drum, and Casey Fines did on the scene.
So basically, there's a bias in this whole entire case. They falsified. She's telling the judge on the record. There is no foundation to what this prosecutor is talking about. She's basing her theory on falsified material.
Okay, let me continue. She says, and I think that the information that I have acquired to support that information or that allegation, now seeing where it is also demonstrated that same opinion, that same coloring of the investigation from moment one with absolutely no proof. There's absolutely nothing other than their statement of the theory of this case that this was an intentional homicide. There's absolutely nothing that's been supported by any evidence. In fact, it's been contradicted. They relied in large part on the statement that was attributed to Mr. Al-Jazari that Investigator Drum and the Commonwealth later, they had to admit that Investigator Drum did not make an accurate statement in his written report. They admitted to that. And his search warrant or in his criminal complaint. That is an absolute lie. And that is what the Commonwealth theory is based on. And beyond that, I'm not sure what evidence of any danger to the community there is. There's been no evidence of any kind of violence or danger to the community by Mr. Al-Jazari. And in fact, I will say, and I don't know whether this was brought up before any of the previous hearings. I don't think so, but I have seen video in which Mr. Al-Jazari is being yelled at. Being yelled at is an understatement, but essentially towered over by a man that is at least a foot taller than him. okay, in our, and he's probably over by 100 pounds, if not more, screaming at him, yelling at him on a public sidewalk, and Mr. Al-Jazari is calm as could be. There's absolutely no threat. There's absolutely no response to that of anything other than verbally trying to have a calm conversation with the man. The man is red in the face. He's spitting all over him, screaming at him, and there's zero reaction. And I think that also speaks volume. This is somebody who is prepared to defend this case and to address the Commonwealth case intellectually and with evidence and not with violence or danger to the community. And he is willing and ready to do anything that this court thinks would help reassure the court that is accurate. So she's telling the judge, Mustafa has zero criminal history. There's a video of him being assaulted, whatever the guy is yelling at him. She's referring to this video.
How calm Mustafa is. Okay.
It's showing you what kind of person, what kind of demeanor Mustafa has, okay? And she's telling the judge that the Commonwealth has previously relied on statements made by Drum and Mason, which they have now admitted were inaccurate. And these, by the way, these statements that they relied on previously are the reason for the arrest warrant, for the search warrants, and for any warrants that were issued in this case. Those were the reasons. And the fact that the Commonwealth and the police department admit today that Robert Drum lied makes those warrants invalid. They're invalid. And whatever theory they had, which was based on Drum's inaccurate description of what Mustafa said, those are no longer valid. So what is the Commonwealth relying on? Nothing. Because the police department have already admitted that Robert Drum had violated department policy. Chad Mason admitted that he violated the chain of custody and tampered with Mustafa's dash cam. The police department on video called the fire department to the police impound and crushed the main piece of evidence in this case. Now, this is what the lawyer is telling the judge, okay? And Judge Weimer says, I'm ready for a response to the prosecutor, okay?
This is the vehicle. So this is the vehicle after the accident. This is the vehicle. Let's pull that up real quick. This is the vehicle after the accident. And this is what they've done. The police
They've crushed
have done.
the car.
They crushed and staged
They
the
crushed the evidence. You've destroyed the evidence in this case. You have physically destroyed the evidence without authority and without justification. You have destroyed the evidence. And today the prosecutor wants to tell the judge, I want to take the jury to the car.
She's not going to show them this
What
vehicle.
car?
She can't. She's going to show them this vehicle.
She's going to show them that car.
After the police crushed and staged the vehicle.
Are you going to tell the jury that the car looked like this and we destroyed it
the real question
without
is,
justification to make it look like this? Are you going to tell the jury that?
The real question is, and instead of Mustafa's lawyer filing a motion to dismiss based on all this evidence, she filed a motion to withdraw. And the real question is, what happened? What happened between February, what day was it?
February 27.
February 27 and yesterday. The lawyer wants to tell the judge that there is a breakdown in communication. Well, if the breakdown in communication is that Mustafa
before we go on
is
track,
asking you for his discovery.
Before we go off track, I just read to you what court-appointed Gene Brown is telling the judge, and the dishonorable Judge Weimer tells the prosecutor, I'm ready for a response. Okay? Now, you would assume, the public would assume, that the prosecutor is going to stand there and say, Your Honor, what she said is not true about the video of Mustafa getting beat up, the violations of his civil rights, the extended incarceration without a timely trial, okay? The falsified reports, the falsified warrants. What the prosecutor is relying on has now been identified as lies by Robert Drum. All that information, you would assume that the prosecutor is going to get up and she's going to rebuke that. She's going to object to what Gene Brown said. But she doesn't do that. She doesn't defend the Commonwealth position on the defendant. She doesn't do that. What she says is, when Judge Weimer says, I'm ready for a response, she says, yes, sir. I think what we just heard was another bond argument. I heard absolutely no change in circumstance to indicate that the defendant is not a flight risk or a danger to himself or others. Your Honor, all of the things that Ms. Brown has brought up were known and or argued in prior bond motions. This is the second reconsideration that this court is asked to hear. Does the court want me to address each of the points that Ms. Brown brought up?
Yes.
She's asking the judge.
Yes.
She's asking the judge.
Do you want me to give evidence in reply to what Mustafa's lawyer is? You can't.
Listen.
The problem is she can't.
Listen to this. She's asking the judge, who's a prosecutor in this case, she's asking him, does the court want me to address each of the points that Ms. Brown brought up? And I'll give you insight why she's asking that question to the judge. And this is going to tell you the kind of relationship that this judge, also known as a prosecutor, what kind of relationship he has with the prosecution. They're one and the same. Because she's asking him, should I even respond to that? Why are you're asking the judge? I mean, you would ask that to your prosecutor, who's your co-prosecutor next to you. You would say, should I respond to that? But you're asking the judge, who's also a prosecutor, you think I should respond to that? And the judge says, it's up to you. I mean, it's your case. It's not mine. Why would a judge have to remind the prosecutor, this is your case, it's not mine? Unless this prosecutor constantly has backdoor meetings with the judge. And sometimes they forget they're on the record. Okay, and I think this happened in this case. The prosecutor forgot that she was on the record, and the judge is reminding her, remember, this is your case, not mine. I'm not prosecutor today. We're not in our ex parte meetings anymore. We're officially in court. And he's reminding her, okay? And she says, yes, sir, I guess I will. You guess you will? You guess you'll respond to what Jean Brown just said? All these things that she just said? How you had a false case, a falsified case?
But she didn't respond.
She did not. By the way, I'm going to read to you. She did not respond.
I'll tell you why she didn't respond.
I have my notes. She did not respond.
She can't because the file got leaked. All the body cams, all the document that actually show. By the way, everything that Jean Brown said, there is body cams is documented. There's body cams that show what she's telling the judge. So what is the prosecutor going to reply with? Did your officer falsify the case? Yeah, there's evidence.
What is she going to say? No. There's literally a letter from the chief of police. There's a letter from the
police department that he violated department policy based on a recording that he actually falsified Mustafa's statement.
And by the way, she says that this is prosecutor's response. She says when he tells her it's up to you. I mean, it's your case. It's not mine. Sarah Sammy gets up and says, yes, sir, I guess I will. My position is that there has been no change in circumstance. Absolutely. The last time we had this was back in July, where you denied another bond because there was no change in circumstances. I will say that's a lie because Officer Drum has been found to have falsified everything in this case. Everything that the warrants were issued on was based on falsified material. Chief of Police admitted today, and the prosecutor, that Robert Drum lied. Therefore, any warrant you got from the falsified material is no longer valid. So what is the prosecution relying on? And the answer is nothing. She says, but if you're going to argue for bond purposes, I have nothing to say. I don't know if we're keeping this separate or to the Commonwealth. It's two separate inquiries. One is whether there can be a bond hearing because of the change in circumstance. And two, if there is, then we have a bond hearing. She wants to tell the judge that what the lawyer just argued, I don't have anything to respond to it. She's flat out said, I have nothing to respond. Word for, this is in quotes, okay? Wow. She says, if you're going to argue for bond purposes, I have nothing to say. That's what the prosecutor says. Now we will find out if Judge Weimer is impartial. Because what does Judge Weimer say? He says...
So basically, she's telling the judge there is overwhelming evidence that for the past 3 years, she's wrong.
Amar, Judge Weimer
She
says
she has. I have nothing to
say to the bond hearing. She has nothing to say.
That's crazy. The defense attorney is telling the judge.
She just showed the judge.
The theory is based on officer that falsified this case, and she's telling him, "I don't have anything to say."
You don't find that weird that the judge does not tell the lawyer, "Wait a minute, did you just say this defendant was beaten up? There's a video of it. Did you just say the search warrants and the warrant for his arrest were based on falsified material that the Commonwealth and the chief of police have now admitted to that officer lying and creating false probable cause? Did you just say that? Wow, maybe I should really consider this bond for this man who's been sitting for over 3 years."
It tells you a lot about the judge.
And when the prosecutor says, "I have nothing to say about what this lawyer just said," you have no argument. So the judge should rule for the person that has an argument, not for a prosecutor that says, "I have nothing to say." What did the judge do? The judge, after Gene Brown said, Judge Weimer said, but after Prosecutor Sammy says she has nothing to say about what the lawyer just said, Judge Weimer says, "We'll start with the first part then." Okay, and then Gene Brown gets up again, and she said, she said a whole bunch of things, but one of the key things that I have quoted here is she said that previous counsel, Mr. Haywood, was on the case for just shy of a year, and there was a lot of positive interaction between Mr. Haywood and Mr. Al-Jazari. She said there's a large part of the discovery that Mr. Al-Jazari wanted to have the opportunity and time to review, that this is a massive undertaking, not just for the lawyer, but
isn't that what's happening with her?
But also to digest it with Mr. Al-Jazari. And so that speaks to logistics in the jail. I can tell the court that, of course, I have a regular trial schedule. I haven't seen Mr. Al-Jazari in a week because I had to stop by. I had to stop because I had a jury trial this week, and he was very, very understanding of that and respectful of that. She's telling the judge, she told Mustafa, "I can't see you for a week." And she says, in quote here, I have it. She says, he was very, very understanding of that and respectful of that. Okay. Now, but when I go to the jail, I have to work it around my court schedule and everything else. There are only 2 daytime windows for in-contact visiting, which is what we have to do because we have to go over things on the computer. And it is just impossible. I do not prefer doing that by video whatsoever. So I have maybe 2 windows during the day, and that is if I can make it out of court in time, which usually I cannot. If I don't go with a 2-hour window at the very least, by the time I check in, the deputies check me in, call back, get somebody usually there to wait for somebody to come to the front so that somebody... Basically, she's describing what her process is when she goes to the jail, that she has to wait. They have to bring him out of the cell, and it's time consuming.
There's a whole entire process.
It says it can be up to an hour or more from the time I walk into the door, even if I call ahead, and the time that she sees Mr. Al-Jazari to get back to the booth. It takes about a little bit over an hour for her when she walks into the building to meet with Mr. Al-Jazari because of the process that they have to go through. And that usually it requires that I wait until the end of the day so that I can at least go in at 8 p.m. when I know that I have a 3-hour window. So that means there is a, at night.
So she's basically making a case where she wants
she's
Mustafa
telling the judge
on a bond so that way he can easily go to her office.
She literally says it. I have it in my notes. She literally says that the process to see him is just it's time consuming. She has to be there until midnight if she comes to see him at 8 o'clock. And she would like to capitalize on... She would like to capitalize on him being on bond so that they can sit in a conference room comfortably and so that he doesn't feel like somebody is constantly watching over him, that somebody's always listening to him, and that he's more comfortable coming to her office and reviewing all the material, which is a lot of video in this case.
Basically telling him Mustafa is entitled to a bond. The prosecutor is basing this whole entire thing on a theory made by a police officer that falsified it.
So basically, let me tell you.
Okay, go ahead.
She tells the judge, after she said everything that she said, the judge says, okay, let's start with the first part. She's describing to the judge the process that it would take for her to come see Mustafa at the jail, how it's time consuming. She has to be here till midnight, and that it's going to be really difficult for her to show him videos because this case has a lot of body cams, okay, and a lot of digital evidence. So it's going to be difficult for her, and she's trying to plead with the judge that I just told you there's no case here. The prosecution is relying on a false theory, a theory that has been proven to be false, okay? And the judge says, the judge, by the way, abruptly stops what the lawyer is saying, and he says, I have heard enough. There has not been sufficient change to warrant every consideration of the bond, and the bond is denied.
That's the key right there.
Take care of everything. And Sarah Sammy says, yes, sir.
That's the key right there, by the way.
Mr. Al-Jazari, you can go with the deputy. Court is in recess.
On technicality, by the way, that's the key right there. On technicality, he just dismissed everything that the defense attorney said. What is the technicality? That the lawyer has to file a motion to reconsider the bond.
Look, technicality or not.
Listen, they're playing a game here. By the way, there's no way that a defense attorney would tell a judge that the whole entire case is falsified. My client is getting beaten up inside the jail, and the judge is going to tell her, well, what did he tell her exactly?
I've heard enough. He said, I've heard enough.
I've heard enough. And the lawyer has to file a motion to reconsider the bond. So basically, he didn't hear anything as far as the bond is concerned, because you, the lawyer, have to file a motion to reconsider the bond, the decision.
Gene Brown just told you, my client is getting beat up. He's in jail for over 3 years.
You want to tell me
based on falsified material? She said based on falsified material that the police and the Commonwealth have now admitted that it's false information. He looks at the prosecutor and says, well, are you going to respond? And she says, do you want me to? I guess I will. I have nothing to say. What the fuck are we talking about? The judge, while the lawyer is talking, he says, I've heard enough. You heard enough of what? You heard enough of what? You just told the prosecutor to respond.
So at that point, you would assume that Mustafa's lawyer is going to file an appeal, because this judge obviously is impartial in this case. So the lawyer is going to file an appeal. And she told us that. She told Mustafa that. So the question is, why didn't Mustafa's defense attorney file an appeal? Why did you gaslight and lie to Mustafa that you were going to file an appeal? Mustafa stood in court yesterday and he told the judge, I would rather my lawyer flat out tell me I'm not going to file a bond, where instead you tell me I'm going to file a bond and then you lie to me. So the question is, what happened since February 27th?
Gene Brown got out of the courtroom. Okay, let's go back a little bit. Gene Brown, when the judge says, I've heard enough, I'm denying it. And he ends the hearing right there and then. Gene Brown comes out of the courtroom and she says, what the fuck was that? What the hell? It's like in the middle of her speech, he just says, I've heard enough. You heard enough of what? And she's confused, or she's acting confused. And she tells us, the prosecutor didn't even have a response to what I just said. And then she says, well, the only way to get past the situation is I'm going to file a appeal, because clearly Judge Weimer did not rule correctly. Okay, he's not fair. She says he's not fair. So she's going to appeal it to go to a different judge, a more impartial judge. Okay, she tells us she's going to file the appeal. She says, I'm going to file it tonight. And then she says, you know what, I'm going to file it definitely over the weekend. I can do it electronically. She tells Mustafa she's going to file the appeal, and then she disappears for a month before the next time she makes any contact with Mustafa over the phone. She tells you she's going to file bond, and she disappears for a month. No phone call, no visit, no communication. Mustafa is constantly calling her throughout those 30 days, and she doesn't answer. When your lawyer fails to answer you, she promised you something. She fails to answer the most basic, which is a phone call, communication. She fails to answer. You have no choice but to write to the clerk of the court and say, hey, I'm sitting in jail. My lawyer told me she was going to file an appeal for bond, and I can't get in contact with her. I mean, I remember at some point we said, like, is she still okay? We just want to do a wellness check because she's not responding to you. We drove to her office, which is a remote office that is shared by like 4 lawyers, and nobody shows up to it because it's a remote office.
We walk in and we're asking, we just want to see Mustafa's lawyer.
She's not there.
Mustafa, you're not answering.
She works from home.
You're not answering Mustafa's phone. You're not picking up Mustafa's phone. Mustafa wants to know, where is his lawyer? So we drive to her office and no one is there.
No one's there.
But you know what she tells Mustafa? She tells Mustafa that I sat down with your brothers in the office. We sat down on the couch. We talked to your brother. Why would you lie to Mustafa? Why the fuck would you lie to Mustafa and tell him that I sat down with your family when you were not there and we never sat down with you? I mean, that's the problem.
I mean, look, I just read what Gene Brown, court-appointed lawyer Gene Brown, said in court on the record about Mustafa's behavior, how they're getting along great, how she's asking the jail officers are saying he's very respectable, he's respectful with them, they have a great relationship.
So
what changed since the last hearing?
What changed since February?
Did Gene Brown get threatened by someone from the judge's chambers? That's the real question. Was there somebody, an agent of the county? Is there an agent of the county threatening this lawyer off the record? Because
I mean,
you just changed all of a sudden.
Let's just play devil advocate. You want to say that this lawyer, Gene Brown, with Morrison is not being threatened. How hard is it to go up to the county, to the prosecution office, and demand the missing body cams? How hard is it?
It's emotion. It's literally emotion away from getting that information. It's emotion.
Mustafa is asking for very basic things in his case, which is missing body cams. We've identified missing body cams. There are missing body cams. Mustafa is asking for the 1 terabyte hard drive cell phone dump for you, Gene Brown, to sit down with your client and go over. That's his constitutional right. Mustafa is asking you, what happened to my independent expert that's going to reconstruct the vehicle accident and extract the dash camera? These are basic things that you can answer unless you are terrified to go to the prosecution office and demand those things. By the way, those are basic things in a case where you're talking about crash.
In any case,
a
car accident.
You're talking about a car accident. You're talking about a crash. The county says one thing. Evidence shows something completely different. The evidence shows this is a car accident. Now, Mustafa has a right to inspect his vehicle. Mustafa has a right to inspect the dash camera, especially when you're talking about a broken chain of custody where the officer has 4 different stories to how he handled his dash camera. And today you have no audio. You have a cut dash camera. You should be able to go up to the prosecution offices, demand the missing exculpatory evidence, and demand to have those independent experts go in and do their job and sit down with your client.
Look, I just want to say,
compare and contrast February to what happened yesterday. You want to tell the judge a breakdown in communication? What exactly does that mean? Because you just said Mustafa is you have no problem with Mustafa. You said all those nice things about Mustafa, and you on the record said that your client is innocent, that the prosecution is lying. And you said you have the best communication with your client.
She even said that she had a week-long trial. She told him that I'm not going to be able to speak to you for a week. She said he was very respectful and understanding. I don't think Mustafa is unreasonable when he says, I just want to go over the material in my case. I want to participate in I want basic communication with my attorney. When I call her for 60 days and she doesn't answer me, and now all of a sudden we're in a situation where after 60 days of no contact, she comes out of the blue and says, I want to withdraw. That's what the hell he's scared of. You're going to sit on his case for a whole year, not show him anything, not discuss anything with him, and then at the very end say, I want to withdraw out of this case. Let's push his case another year, give him another lawyer. But before they give him a lawyer, let this honorable Judge Carol Weimer call lawyers around, lawyer shopping for Mustafa before they're retained. Because it looks like Judge Carol Weimer is making deals behind closed doors with these lawyers before they are retained for Mustafa. That's what it looks like.
Look,
he's done it with Brad Haywood. He's done it with Clark. What's his name? Clark Williams.
Yeah.
John Clark
Williams.
Two lawyers that were called specifically by Judge Carol Weimer. William and Clark. Two lawyers that were called by the judge. Brad Haywood, who was called by the judge. Gene Brown, who was called by the judge. And all three lawyers say the same exact excuse. You don't think that prosecutor Carol Weimer is giving these lawyers
It sounds like there's a breakdown in communication. It sounds like there's a breakdown in communication because the prosecutor is not giving you the exculpatory evidence for your client.
That's what it looks like. I mean, the bottom line of this whole thing, the bottom line is that Mustafa will never get a fair trial. He will never get a normal lawyer in this county, okay? In this county, under this judge, because the judge is admitting, he's calling lawyers around prior to them being retained for Mustafa as court-appointed lawyers. And Mustafa asked the judge very specifically, I want a change of venue, because clearly this prosecution office is going to threaten every lawyer. Okay. And the only way to bypass that is if you go to a different venue where they have no vested interest in threatening his lawyer. And I guarantee you, if this case goes to another venue, no legit prosecutor will ever prosecute this case. When they look at this case file and they see that the evidence in this case has been crushed, destroyed, witnesses manipulated, officers lying under oath, no prosecutor, no honorable prosecutor will take this case. None. And that's why they refuse to move it to a different venue, because they have a crook for a prosecutor, okay? They have corrupt individuals in the police department that are willing to raise their right hand and swear to a lie. They have a dishonorable judge like Carol Weimer who's willing to sit there behind the bench and prosecute this case. No other venue will do that.
I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Muhammad for being here. Thank you for being here. It's cold. The weather is definitely disrespectful. It's freezing. So I want to thank Muhammad for being here. Thank you for being here. And I want to pedal back this whole entire conversation. And the purpose of this podcast is not to attack Mustafa's lawyer. Clearly, Mustafa on the record yesterday said he has no problem with his lawyer. He has a good relationship with his lawyer. All he's asking is for his lawyer to sit down with him and go over discovery. That's all he's asking. He's asking, when are you going to reconstruct my vehicle? I'm entitled. The county gave money for an independent expert to go in and inspect my vehicle. When are you going to have an independent expert to go in and extract my dash camera, since the police officer admitted to breaking the chain of custody and digital forensic today say there is audio? When are you going to go in and extract my dash camera with the audio? I think these are basic things that you can ask for. Mustafa's constitutional right is being violated. And we're attempting through this podcast to empower Mustafa's lawyer, not to attack her. We're attempting to empower her, because we all understand as a community that when there is no media, when the media is absent, it leaves a vacuum of corruption. In this case, in this county, NBC4 is in the back pocket of the police department. And the biggest proof is you no longer hear about the Mustafa Al-Jazari case that was all over the news 3 years ago. Since the file has leaked, where you're watching a vehicle is crushed and staged. We have the pictures of the vehicle getting crushed and staged. This is Mustafa's vehicle after the accident. This is the vehicle inside the police department. Why hasn't Julie Carey updated you in this case? Why hasn't Julie Carey told you that an officer took the dash camera without a warrant, and now the dash camera...
Get off that screen.
The dash camera, digital forensic is saying there is audio. Julie Carey is not updating you into that the lip reader has been kicked off the case. If you were to look up Mustafa's name today, the first thing that you're gonna find is that Julie Carey is talking about that the prosecution office has a lip reader, and the lip reader says 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, how is it fair for Mustafa that you don't know that the lip reader has been kicked off the case? There is no lip reader. That they have the audio to this dash camera and they're not releasing it. I pedaled back, and I want to tell Jean Brown with Morrison and Morrison, ma'am, we have a good relationship with you. Our purpose is not to attack you. Our purpose is to empower you and give you the strength that you need in this county to go up to the prosecution office and simply ask for Mustafa's discovery, exculpatory body cams. And sit down with Mustafa, go over his body cam, go over the 1 terabyte hard drive from his cell phone dump, and demand that the independent expert go in and do their job. Reconstruct the vehicle and extract the dash camera.
You know, I will say, I just want to add, when you say independent expert, Brad Haywood tried to lie to us about a independent expert company going in. He tried to lie to us. And I think Jean Brown was also told by the prosecutor to lie to Mustafa about this independent expert company. Okay? Now, we know from the hearings that occurred with Brad Haywood that the stipulation that was put in...
I'll put it up for you.
The stipulation that was put in is that when an independent expert goes in to review the SD card of Mustafa's dashcam, that the police are there, the defense lawyer is there, the prosecution is there, along with this independent expert company.
Do me a favor. Can you do me a favor? Can you read what the transcript says on...
Right here, the highlighted part?
September 16, 26? Is that 26 or 25?
16.
September 16, what year?
2025.
2025. Do me a favor. Read line 4 to line 9.
Okay.
And the reason I want you to read it, because Mustafa's lawyer went into and sat down with Mustafa and told him, well, Mustafa, the independent expert, doesn't have a body cam because Mustafa is entitled to the body cams because the stipulation
is that the police will accompany the expert.
Will be
to
present.
make sure chain of custody is not broken, because Sarah Samuel was so terrified. She said they don't want the dash cam to leave the police department, and the judge ordered that the expert will go to the police department and conduct the extraction under the visual eyes of the police.
So that means the stipulation are that the police department is going to be there and they're going to have body cams.
Exactly.
Look, Jean Brown, you may be able to gaslight and lie to Mustafa, who's in solitary confinement. But for the love of fucking God, do not lie to the family and do not lie to this community. You tell Mustafa, oh, Mustafa, the independent expert doesn't have a body cam. He's not a police officer. Well, the police department is there. And because the police department is there, Mustafa is entitled to review those body cams so that he can know that...
Was there an extraction done?
Was there an extraction done? Because
they brought in Doug Lacey to cover it up.
Because based on other body cams, when they 2.5 years ago, when they said they
allegedly allowed an expert to examine the vehicle.
They examined Mustafa's vehicle, and now we're all watching those body cam, how that independent expert was blocked.
By Robert Drum telling him, Sarah Sammy said, you cannot look at this car.
So I think it's fair for Mustafa to review those body cams when you're telling him that the independent expert, Doug Lacey, went in and extracted the dash camera. So, do me a favor, Mohammed. Can you read that transcript?
Before I read it, I just want to make a very important note. Gene Brown wants to tell Mustafa that Doug Lacey went in to examine this dash camera, right? Well, Brad Haywood on an email said that Investa had gone in to look at this dash camera. So our question is, did Prince William County Court grant funds for 2 experts to examine this dash cam? If so, where are the reports and where are the body cams? Because if somebody's going to go touch this dash camera, I'm pretty sure Chief of Police Newsham and Amy Ashworth will want somebody to record that entire interaction to make sure that nobody manipulates the files on the original camera. Isn't that right?
Absolutely.
Would you not want...
I mean, based on the history of this case, we're watching leaked body cam where an independent expert 2.5 years ago went in to a crushed and staged vehicle and was blocked from inspecting that vehicle. And we hope the same thing is not happening with those independent experts.
I mean, there should be...
And if you want to tell us it didn't, Mustafa is entitled to watching those body cam when the independent expert went in and extracted the dash camera off the SD card.
And the most basic thing you should show is the receipt where you paid Investa, Prince William County, you paid Investa, and you paid Doug Lacey to go in and look at this dash camera. Unless you're lying. And if you're lying, if lawyers are lying to Mustafa for the prosecutors, that's a very big problem.
I mean, you can't gaslight us and tell us that the stipulation.
Let me read this.
The police department are supposed to be there. If they're there, they're supposed to be body cam.
Okay.
Where are the body? Do me a favor. Read the transcript.
I will tell you that notes. I will tell you what notes that I made with regards to concerns is that there needs to be the police or whoever it is in charge of the evidence at this point would need to be at least present. But it sounds like that they're willing to do this at the police station.
You know, my problem with GM Brown is, why would you lie to Mustafa? I mean, Mustafa is specifically asked you, I want to review the body cam. You're telling him that the independent expert went in when he's extracting Doug Lacey. Mustafa is telling you, the stipulation says that the prosecutor, the police department,
and the judge
and the lawyer is going to be there. I need to review. I'm entitled to review the body cams in my case, and I want to see the body cams when they extracted my dash camera. You tell him, well, Mustafa, the independent expert is not a police officer. He doesn't have a body cam. Why would you say that to Mustafa? I mean, I understand that you might think that you can get an up one on Mustafa because he's in solitary confinement. But remember, Mustafa has a family on the outside and has a community that's watching what's going on in his case.
And if you want to, by the way, if you want to say there's no audio, I will tell you there is audio.
The best is yet to come.
To the dash cam, there is audio. But we want to know what you say. You want to tell us there's no audio. My next question is, when did the dash camera stop recording audio? At what point did the dash camera decide on its own, a digital piece of equipment on its own decided that it will no longer record audio? At what point? Because according to Kathy Zymas of Digital Forensics, the audio capability was turned on. We have the dash cam audio, but we would like to know what you say about the audio. You say there's no audio to this dash camera. My question is, at what point did the dash cam stop recording audio? Because if you go to Rexing, they're going to tell you this dash cam processes files at 1 minute increments. And if you want to say that the impact is what caused the audio not to be there, the impact was at the last moment. These videos are in 1 file increments, and this dash cam specifically has a feature where when it detects impact, it doubles the file in what's called a incident folder. You have the main folder, you have an incident folder, and it records a copy. Listen to this. It records a copy of the impact that minute in an incident folder. But when we go to evidence.com, I don't see 2 copies of that file. I only see 1. So where is the incident folder? I mean, you have to provide all that information. If you are an expert like Doug Lacey, former FBI.
You want me to give you a flash into what's going on in this case?
Former FBI.
By the way,
former,
you're going to remember this.
Former bullshit.
You're going to remember. I'm going to give you, today is April 2nd, 2026. One day before the trial, they're going to tell you they're going to dismiss the whole entire case because they already have the audio. They already have the audio. And you know why they're not telling Mustafa that, hey, we went in, we got the audio? Because they know the minute they tell Mustafa, when we call him, he's going to tell us they found the audio.
Again, look,
Listen. Remember what Judge Weimer said when Brad Haywood said the independent expert is going to go in. Remember what
Judge Weimer.
Judge Weimer said, I want to make sure there's another protective order from the family
on whether this has audio or not.
Why would you put a protective order from the family on the finding of the audio? Wait a minute.
On whether there's audio.
Your concern is not the family. Your concern is the community. The police department came out and lied. Now they're in a position where the file is leaked and digital forensic is saying, I heard the audio. So Mustafa is entitled for an independent expert to go in and look at what this officer did with this dash camera. They have the audio, and they're going to come out. They're going to wait all the way until trial, one day before trial, and they're going to come out and like, oh, Mustafa, we found the audio. Oh, my God, we found that the officer lied.
Yeah.
On that note, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Mohammed.
I just want to repeat that one more time before you close this session out.
Go ahead.
This judge is a prosecutor, okay? Because think about it. A judge is supposed to judge the information coming from the prosecution, and he's supposed to judge the information coming from the defense. When the judge implementing an order to seal whether this dash cam has audio or not. Just think of that. The judge on his own, not the prosecutor, the judge on his own said, and it's on the transcript, the judge on his own said there needs to be a protective order on whether the dash cam has audio or not. Not the dash cam itself, not a judge, not a seal, by the way, not a seal on the dash cam footage. No. He's talking about when the experts go in, if the experts find that there is audio, which basically says that the police department and the prosecutors have lied for 3 years. They've held a man behind bars for over 3 years. And if any of
that is posted anywhere on the internet, we're going to have problems. Whatever copies have been made of that, those need to be destroyed.
Okay.
If they get disclosed, that is going to put me in a situation where I will have to withdraw from the case.
Okay.
If you disclose that information in any way, all of it needs to be destroyed now. But if you disclose it in any way, it's going to put me in a position where I will have to withdraw from the case. If you all choose to go on the internet and try to publicize this stuff, that's going to create real problems.
Okay.
You can't do it, is what I'm telling you. You cannot do it. I will have to move to withdraw from the case.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right.
So make sure everybody's aware of that. Okay.